Hey, John.
Good
Hey,
night,
Abby.
John.
Hey,
Everyone.
Carl.
Hi, Abby. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you virtually.
On
Welcome,
virtually, hopefully sometime soon in person.
Yeah. Well, nice to meet you.
Joe, that's quite a picture. I still can't get the smell of the smoke out of my shirt.
My daughters were at Andy and the T's working, and when they got in my car, I couldn't believe how much the smell of smoke was in their clothing.
Yeah,
So they came home and quickly showered.
it's horrible.
Yeah,
Luckily, no lives lost or injured.
absolutely.
I think it was miraculous what happened.
And I'll put a plug in for God looking out for the Peter Folger house, Benjamin Franklin's grandson. That 5 feet away from the rear of that building, the veranda house, and the roof is gone, and the other structure, there's not even, the paint hasn't even peeled from the heat. It's unbelievable.
Crazy.
Hey, Barry.
So, let's see. Meg, are we expected to have Andrew or Leslie joining us?
Yes, Leslie will be joining us.
Okay. I think, do we have Dave? Yes, welcome, Dave. Okay.
Sorry.
Great. No, you're fine. I think all are here. Great. Okay, anybody have an objection to me starting? Are we waiting on anyone other than maybe Leslie joining in? All right, let's get started. Welcome to the July 11th, 2022 meeting of the Nantucket Planning Board. We are conducting this meeting via Zoom in webinar and remote participation pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order regarding open meeting law. As we were just briefly discussing, I'd first like to thank all the emergency personnel that responded to Saturday's fire at the Veranda House. Tragic fire, historical building, but we have to look at and be thankful for no loss of lives and relatively minor injuries. So all the thanks go to the emergency personnel and volunteers that helped out this weekend. It's pretty chaotic, and it could have been more tragic than it was. Secondly, on behalf of the board, I would like to send our condolences to Jack Gardner's family. Long time, decades, community service member, and we lost him this past week. Most recently, Jack was on the Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission, and I know that there are a lot of people that are going to feel a loss for this town because of his passing. So, condolences to the family. Finally, I would like to welcome new members to the board. Joe Topham to the full board, and Abby Molina to the alternate. And thank you for your volunteer, your dedication, and we welcome you here.
Thank you.
Try to make you feel comfortable. All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order all the board members, please acknowledge your attendance when I call your name. Roll call. Dave Iverson.
Here.
Nat Lowell.
Here.
Harry
Aye.
Rector.
Here.
Joe Topham.
Here.
And obviously the chair is here. Alternates, Carl Borchert,
Aye.
Stephen Welch,
Here.
and Abby D. Molina.
Here.
Welcome. Okay, staff, welcome Leslie.
Here.
Okay, Meg Trudell.
Here.
And did I see Catherine Ansero?
Yep, I'm here.
Great. Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion for the approval of agenda.
So move, sir.
Second.
Motion's been made by Barry, seconded by Nat. Roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Now, I think first on the agenda, we are looking at the election of officers. Is there anyone that, Nat?
Right. I'll make a motion to leave the current chair and vice chair positions the same for the next year.
Second that motion.
Dave, would that be okay with you?
Yeah.
Well, I
pleasure
for
of the
one
board.
appreciate the confidence, and hopefully we'll see how the vote goes. So with that motion made by Nat, and who seconded that?
Barry.
Barry, and we'll have roll call. Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you very much. Now on to appointments. We are, I believe, looking for a vacant seat on the CRAC Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee. Is there anyone interested in going on that committee? Don't all jump at once. No?
My plate is full, or I would.
Yeah. Well, I hope to be reappointed to the CPC, and as you, Dave, my plate is full.
Yeah.
I can't fit another minute, but
In that case, I'll step up on crack. After hearing you want to be on CPC.
thank you, Joe. Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to
Yeah.
Appoint,
appoint Joe Topham to crack for the next year.
is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made by Dave, seconded by Nat, for the appointment of Joe Topham to Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee. Roll call, all in favor. Dave Iverson.
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
That's an important one. And the chair votes aye. Thank you very much, and thanks for stepping up. Now on to the CPC, Community Preservation Committee. I have been on it for the last few years, and I would love to stay on that. I think we do some really good work there. And that's pretty much all my pitch for asking to stay on. If there's anybody else that would like to, please step up, and if not, entertain a motion.
So move that we leave Mr. Trudell on the CPC for another term.
Second.
Second.
Motion's been made by Barry, seconded by Nat. Roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Thank you very much. Now onto the minutes. I see that we have one set of minutes for June 22nd, 2022.
Mhm.
Is that it, Meg? We're in line to approve those?
Yep.
Great. Is there a motion?
I'll move that we approve the minutes from June 22nd as submitted.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made by Barry, seconded by Joe. Roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Moving on, we're looking at second dwellings. So we have two here. Is there anyone that
Ulrich from calendar, regroup with Terry.
comment or needs to recuse before I take those motions together?
Mr. Chair, I need to recuse for 65 Surfside.
Okay,
Both applications.
so then there are only two. We'll just take one at a time. Donna Carey, Trust et al. At 6 Dukes Road. Entertain a motion. Barry,
Motion to approve is submitted.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Second,
motion's been made by Barry, seconded by Joe. Roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Nat,
aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. I'll note that Joe is recusing from 65A Surfside Road, Fred and Denise Bazillion. And with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval per staff recommendation.
Second.
A motion's been made by Nat, seconded by Barry. Roll call, Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, on to garage apartments. Anyone have any questions or recusals? Hearing none, we have one, Jason Olbrez, 196 Hummock Pond Road. Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made by Joe, seconded by Barry. Roll call, Joe,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Tertiary dwellings, there are two of them. Joe.
Again, Mr. Chair, I'll need to recuse.
Sure. And the other one, so we'll start with this one. Joe noting that he will be recusing himself. Fred and Denise Basilian, 65A Surfside Road. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that to approve with stack recommendations.
Second.
Motion's been made by Dave, seconded by Barry. Roll call, Dave,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Great. And it looks like we'll be looking at the tertiary dwelling for 10 Lewis Court in our public hearing. So we'll put that on hold for a minute. A&Rs, we have a few of them, but two of them are public hearings. So let's take these. The first three, is there anyone that has any comments or recusals? We have 9 South Mill Road, 32 Holbert Ave. And
So
that's
just two.
Yeah, just two, sorry. And the other two are public. Any
I'll
questions,
make a
comments?
motion to endorse.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Barry, seconded by Dave to endorse Cal Hughes, Crowley, 9 South Mill Street, and also 32 Holbert Trust, Stephen L. Cohen, trustee, 32 Holbert Ave. Roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. And then it looks like for Laurel Long, 14 Equator Drive, and also Marguerite Glidden, 24 Rugged Road. We'll be seeing that again in public hearings.
Mhm.
Now on to the public hearings. We have a few that are to be continued. 48 West Myacomet Road, that's Catherine Dean Schomer. AC Mid-Island LLC and AC Offices LLC, 18, 18A, 20, 22, 24, and 26 Sparks Ave. 1 Airport Road LLC, 1 Airport Road. 7 Airport Road LLC, 7 Airport Road. We also have 2 additions that came in late for continuance. That's 50 Myacomet Ave and 3 Sand Eel Lane. That's Swift and O'Connor. And then we also have 27 Fair Street LLC, 27 and 29 Fair Street. All those are to be continued to the August 8th, 2022 meeting. Do I have a motion for continue?
So moved,
Before we
sir.
get that, can I just interrupt for just a second?
Sure,
What
go
about the
ahead, Nat.
deadlines that are, what about those August 7th deadlines, Megan?
Those were updated to, I think, the end of October. So those are all set.
Okay.
I just didn't
Okay,
reflect
cool.
that in staff
Thank you,
report.
Nat. though.
Thank you.
Great.
I'm just checking. That's a Sunday, so that's why I'm asking.
Okay, with that, with the ones that I called, I'll entertain a motion for continuing without prejudice.
So moved, sir.
Second.
Motion's been made by Barry, seconded by Dave. Roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Thank you. All right, our first public hearing for discussion, Laurel E. Long, 14 Equator Drive. Representation by Art Gasparo. If Art is present, Meg.
I am.
Hi, Art, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm before you tonight with a application for a special permit to create a covenant lot. This property on Equator Drive. If there's anything particularly unusual about it, happy to address questions, comments, or concerns that you may have.
I'll open it up to the board first before the public. Anybody on the board have a question?
Big lot.
Seeing none, I'll open it up to the public for questions. And I would rely on Meg to let me know if somebody's raising their hand.
I'm not seeing anyone.
Okay.
These are existing dwellings already, Art, right?
Yes, Mr. Lowell.
Beautiful. Okay. I'll make a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Oh,
Okay, the motion's been made by Nat, seconded by Dave to close the public hearing. Roll call, Nat,
aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. And now on to the merits. Is there a motion or further discussion?
And I'd make a motion to approve this, with the finding the proposal advances the intent of the zoning bylaw and creating year-round housing, along with the conditions suggested by staff.
Okay, motion's been made by Dave. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion second by Joe. Roll call, Dave,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Now we'll take the 14 Equator A&R. Vote on
Motion.
that.
Motion to endorse and for 14 Equator.
Okay, is there a second?
Aye. Yes, please.
Barry second. Okay, roll call. Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and Dave.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Great, thank you. Moving right along. Marguerite Glidden, 24 Rugged Road. Art, I see that you're still on, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So once again, this is a special permit application to create a covenant lot. This one does have a request for a waiver from the regulations to allow separate driveway accesses. I believe at this location where there's about 171 feet of frontage, that there wouldn't be any adverse impact or effect on the neighborhood or traffic safety or patterns by having two driveways. I think it would be in keeping with the harmony of the neighborhood. And I would ask the board to, if you agreed to grant that relief, so it'd be a covenant lot with a driveway for the existing house and the proposed house where they're looking to relocate move a house onto.
Okay, thank you. Board members?
I don't have a problem with it.
That'll look fine.
Seeing none from the board, I'll open it up to the public. Any comments or raised hands, Meg?
Not seeing anyone.
Motion to close the public hearing then, sir.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
All right, motion's been made to close by Barry, seconded by Joe. Roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. And now on to the merits. Is there a motion or further?
Motion to approve. The findings advances the intent of the zoning bylaw, creating your own housing, and the 1 through 5 conditions.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Motion's been made by Nat, seconded by Barry. Roll call, Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. I believe we also have to vote on the A and R.
Yep.
Make a motion that we endorse the A and R.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, motion's been made by Barry, seconded by Joe. Roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Art. Now on to 10 Lewis Court, Vlatko Peshnacki, pardon my pronunciation. And I see that either Don Bracken or Linda Williams or Mike Wilson, one or all of the above, are representing. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the applicant?
All three of them are here, so just give me a moment. I'll bring them all over.
I think this is Linda's show.
All right, Linda, if
I'm here if
you're-
you have any questions on the plan.
Thank you.
It's quite a lot to get in as a panelist. It takes you out and leaves you out there for a while, and then it decides to let you back in when it feels like it. So I'm here. There's not much to say about it. It's sort of an unusual situation. We all talked about it in the office and along with Mike Wilson, who's here. And this was probably the way to do it. This was a structure that was moved in as a single family dwelling many, many years ago as a little ranch. And so the existing structure is a quote unquote duplex with one bedroom on one side and one bedroom on the other side. It fits in my living room. And the family that owns it wanted to build a house that they could actually live in. So they're building a house in the back. And the only way to do it, because you cannot make one of the duplex units a tertiary, even though they both qualify, they're like 400 square feet each, if not total. That the only way to do it is to make the bigger house, quote unquote, the tertiary. So that's where we are now. And I believe it got a favorable recommendation because it's such a bizarre situation. And I believe Megan probably will have something else to add to this.
Okay, Meg, did you want to add something before we open it up to the board?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo Linda's comments. They came to us kind of with advice on what to do so that they could construct a dwelling that would essentially function as a primary dwelling. It's an unusual situation with a duplex being so small. So we suggested that they come forward with a special permit to increase the floor area of the tertiary dwelling and perhaps place a restriction on further development on the existing duplex in lieu of granting that waiver.
Do you have a map, a plot plan we could see with this?
Yeah, there's a plan.
It's in the packet.
Yeah, it's in the packet.
No, I think just for the public to see what we're discussing.
Give me just a moment and I can get that on the screen.
I looked at
Lewis
this.
Court as well, which is sort of it's the very end of Lewis Court. It's sort of off the beaten path over there off of Hooper Farm Road.
And I've looked at this pretty extensively because I didn't want to be confused with my opinions and voting history, especially with tertiary buildings. I've been pretty adamant, myself being one to shoot down a tertiary that didn't, I guess, go along with the square footage that was legally allowed, which was 650 and was just proved to be 900. This case, I have to say, I don't have an issue with, and here's my reasoning, and I'm just letting the board know because I did look at this. The duplex that's there right now, there are two sides. Each of the side would be under what we presently allow for a tertiary of 900 square feet. Each side is 737 square feet. And because of a technicality of the zoning of the R10, and there's tons of ground cover left, the proposed dwelling would normally be the primary dwelling, and even the secondary dwelling, if you used half of the duplex, would be much smaller than allowed with 80% of the size of the main structure. And then the other side of the duplex would be clearly under the 900 square feet. So you were looking at two other units that will accommodate housing, and it really, both of them fall under anything to do with the secondary and tertiary size limitations. So the main house is, that we'll call it tertiary, is a 1,073 on the ground square foot ground cover. If that makes sense to everyone, I just wanted to point out what I really looked at, because I didn't want to go against something that I normally would vote against. But I wanted to clear that up, and I don't have an issue with this, but I'm open to hearing from the board and any kind of questions or concerns.
Actually, John, the whole building is 737. It's not each side 737. The whole building is 737.
Right. Well, interior space. You have 2 floors, if I'm not mistaken, Linda.
No, the duplex is only a 1-floor duplex, no basement. So the whole structure with one bedroom each side is.
Yeah, I thought there were 2 floors on that duplex.
It has a very small second
floor bedroom,
all
bathroom.
gabled walls,
Yes.
but very small.
Yeah, it's sort of, but not really, if you know what I mean.
I don't think they're legal, probably
No,
in height, but very small.
Board members,
I mean,
go ahead, Dave.
I mean, it's so bizarre, but I'm 100% with you, John. I mean,
Yeah.
it's 737 square feet as a primary dwelling is, I mean, I hate to think that we're going outside the box here, but it only makes sense. We kind of have to. I mean, we don't have to, but I just think it's the right thing to do.
Barry, you had your hand up?
I do, but I'm going to ask you to defer to Mike Wilson, who's been having his hand up there for a bit, and then you can come back to me, please.
Sure. Michael? Michael Wilson, is your hand up?
It is.
It is. It looks up. Maybe you're having trouble with the mic.
Well, it's weird. The Zoom has been coming in and out. It's coming in, then you got to sort of come back in, then it goes out again and it comes back in. It's a really sort of a weird connection today. Too many people on Nantucket.
Perfect.
Well, we can come back to Mike if his hand is still.
He's there.
He's there.
Mike, did you have something to say?
If you can hear me, I only wanted to point out what I believe Linda corrected, which is the duplex that exists is only 737 square feet of ground cover. Mm-hmm. And really, when you're looking at the relief the applicant's requesting, it's more to just the definition versus a waiver of the restriction of what the tertiary would be. So I hope that would put it more in perspective of what the Peshnakis are asking.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Barry?
Yeah, actually, you know what? I see that Nat finally figured out how to raise his hand. I am so proud. I am so proud of him. Let him go before me. Because
I knew that was coming, Barry, and I really appreciate that. You are the one that gave me the courage to press that more button.
Hey,
I was going to wait for my next. I was going to wait for one of my next lesser important meetings that I would get like ousted somehow off the screen. I didn't want that to happen, so I just did it, and it works. This is pretty good.
But can he put it down?
So all I was going to say is echo what John and Dave said, but I just have a question for staff. I mean, this part of the island, we haven't seen this yet, and there's probably a handful more of these floating around where this could happen. So it would be good for us to sort of be prepared for this at a future time, because this is a good way to do it. I like Megan's suggestion, restricting any further ground cover or whatever bedrooms, whatever we were talking about earlier in the beginning, because this is the kind of thing that we need to. This is why this is why the tertiary we're allowed to waive things. I mean, this is a specific issue that this is probably, that would be a second dwelling, just like John said. If it wasn't a tertiary, we'd be building a primary, and that would become the secondary if this was a standard house. So that's what we're doing. We're just doing it in a different way. Is that basically correct, Megan? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay. I'm gonna lower my hand, Barry, and press on the lower button. Look at that.
And Barry, your hand is still up.
Yes, it is. Thank you. My God, Megan, note that for the record for Nat, please. No, I'm really thrilled. And Nat, I'll help you with whatever I can.
It's unbelievable.
The Zoom thing. But anyways, through you to staff, I want to ask either Megan or Leslie, is there precedent for us doing this? Is this something that the board's done before? That's my first question to you, and I'll have probably two more follow-ups.
In my tenure, I haven't seen an exact situation like this. I think it's unique, and this was kind of the best way we thought to go ahead and allow this to function as a primary dwelling, where the existing duplex it could be converted to a secondary dwelling, single family home, which would be allowed by right, and then a tertiary dwelling, but this kind of keeps the existing structure intact. Leslie's been here much longer than I have, so she would be able to let you all know if there's been a similar situation that she's aware of.
Leslie, anything?
I can't think of a situation like this. I think this is extremely unique in that the existing duplex is so small and there's so much available potential on the lot.
Anyways,
Okay,
if I can continue.
continue, get Barry, yes, please.
Yeah, so thank you. I mean, John, I'm with you. I am, there's always that trepidation about, how we've written the bylaw for tertiary dwellings. And here we have an example that's going to take it, fairly much way out of context. And so things like that do tend to trouble me in terms of setting a precedent for the future. So I just want to go back through staff and make sure that there's a way to craft the decision that really tries to avoid opening that door in a big way. That's the second question.
I think, Barry, that was the intent of the conditions to not further the expanded without relief from the planning board. So it would have to come back to us again. So if this was something that was unique, any kind of modification or alternative additions would have to come before us anyway. Then we'd look at that.
Right. And just I'd like Leslie to confirm that if you don't mind.
Sure.
Absolutely. I mean, I think limiting the ground cover of the duplexes for any future expansion is a very reasonable condition to impose.
Okay. And that just to lead me to one last thing to Leslie and Megan is that, do you think it's worth, in light of this now, will it be worth re-examining the bylaw that exists for tertiary dwellings to deal with, or do we feel like this is going to be such a low level thing that we can handle it without any adverse effect to the actual bylaw?
My immediate reaction to that is that this is, such an anomaly that we probably don't need to change the bylaw, but we can always look at it and see if there are tweaks that we can make.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Linda, I see that your hand has been raised. Joe, I'll get back to you after Linda. Go ahead, Linda.
I just want to point out all my years on the planning board and the HDC, I've never seen another situation like this because I have never, ever in all these years seen a duplex this small that's actually called a duplex. Because as they say, it moved in there as a single family dwelling, 30 years ago, whenever it was. And it just was split into two for whatever reason, one bedroom. And I've never seen it like this myself. And what I have seen is large duplexes with 650 square foot tertiaries, either in the basement or in the backyard. So that's the typical scenario that doesn't violate the bylaw, on top of the fact that we've raised it to 900 square feet. And I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of these things, but this is the only situation I have ever seen in 40 years in zoning that I've ever seen anything like this. So I don't think this is going to be opening a Pandora's box here. And the conditions are that no further alterations without further relief from the planning board. I would like that language.
Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree about the tertiary apartment. I was having a problem with this, but then I was trying to figure out when would we ever see anything like this. So I'm having a little bit of a hard time with this approving it, but more, I think with 7 bedrooms, I think the parking, I know they meet the requirements, but I guess it's through staff. If there is an issue with parking on the street, et cetera, is that something that they would come back in? And it just seems like there's a lot of program on this tiny little lot.
They can't park on the street here, so they're gonna
All right,
have to stay on the
so
lot.
they'd have to come back to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I would open up the public hearing. I think, Meg, is there anyone to comment? Right, hands raised.
I'm not seeing anyone.
If the board is comfortable with closing, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Nat, seconded by Dave. Close the public hearing. Roll call, Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Any further discussion, or I'd entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve at this point with the recommendations that have been put into the decision by staff.
And the finding,
Yes.
okay.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made by Barry, seconded by Dave. Roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. And
Thank you, everybody.
well, don't go anywhere. We're
still
still
here.
voting on the
I'm still here.
tertiary. So for this, now we're voting on the tertiary.
Make a motion to approve with the conditions as outlined in the draft approval letter.
Okay, motion's been made by Nat.
I'll second it.
Barry, second. Roll call, Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lisa, Linda.
Whatever name works.
Okay, and Dawn, and
I'm here
Michael.
for- Don and I are here for the next one.
Okay. Now on to the next one, Tyler and Erin Thurston, 8 and 8A Mycomet Ave, representing Don Bracken and Linda Williams. Whenever you're
I'm
ready.
probably
who
gonna
will-
turn this over to Don. This is sort of an interesting situation. He'll explain to you that he did all the surveying for this Thurston's subdivision, who inherited it from his dad. That whole area over there was owned by Nate Thurston at one point. It was a pig farm. Go figure. And so it was all subdivided. Tyler got his pieces and Don did the subdivision. And at the time it was a different zoning district. And then it became a different zoning district, sort of in the middle, and got caught on the frontage issue. And through discussions with Andrew, we came up with the roadway layout, which we've used before in order to get proper frontage, which will actually give both lots the required frontage, even though one lot is fine at the moment. So Don will explain that to you. He's sort of stuck with the bank right now, trying to get the construction loan converted. So I'll give it to Don.
ahead,
Thank you. What I would add to that is, both after we created these lots in 2017, the owners never separated the ownership, which most people would have done, I think, to protect themselves from any changes. And so they were notified of possible zoning change at town meeting, but they thought they were going to get some kind of second notification, which according to them, they didn't. So they didn't inform us about the change either. So like Linda said, they sort of got caught because they kept the lots in the same ownership. They just finished building this duplex when this was all realized. And so, this is a way to go to obtain the 50 feet of frontage for each lot. Each lot had enough area. The area didn't change when the zoning changed. It stayed at 5,000 square feet, but the lot frontage changed from 40 feet to 50 feet. So So this parcel A, we're calling it, is 302 square feet. That will be dedicated for roadway purposes and needs to be accepted by the Board of Selectmen. Obviously, we're not proposing any new roadways. We have frontage on My Comet Ave and a common driveway and common parking area for the two properties. This was all sort of planned out since 2017 on how this was all going to look and the best way to do it most efficiently. So, that's pretty much it. The only thing I would also add is Megan did mention as a comment, possible, gift for some bike path funds or that sort of thing. I will note there is an existing easement and there is an existing bike path already along the property that goes up to the bike path on Surfside. So
I just wanted to add for the new members that may not be aware of this, when you have a lot that has a structure on it or may not, and a vacant lot, and they were freestanding and legal at one point, if the zoning changes and you still hold them in the same name, technically the vacant lot merges with the other lot because they changed the frontage requirement. And that's where the problem occurred, but it went through the building department. They didn't catch the zoning change. They didn't catch the frontage change. The building permit was issued, the thing was built, and now on the as-built coming in for the final CO is where somebody realized, oh, wow, technically it merged, but we gave you the building permit, didn't notice it, the building department, Don didn't notice that it had changed. And that's how we ended up with two freestanding lots. One lot is conforming because it was built under the previous 40 feet. That's A and B together. And then the other lot has a duplex on it now, which is all legal. The setbacks are legal. The ground cover is fine. The parking is fine. But because it sort of got through the building department without them catching it, we now have that lot that's got too little frontage. So by creating this little roadway piece, which the planning board's done many times in the past for frontage, that's where we are. It's just that little loopy piece. And we redid it per staff comments to make it a little bit wider and a little bit more of a soft circle, half circle, instead of a very hard circle. So that's where we are at the moment. It's one of those anomalies in the bylaw that it's still there. It's been there from the beginning.
Okay. Meg, I ask again, do you have a map that you can put up? Great, thank you. Board members, any questions, clarifications?
Mr. Chair, through you, I'm just curious what happens to the bike path of the roadway with that radius? Does it just go over it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it says, yeah. So
Just want to make sure that's not going across their property.
No, there's an easement, and the bike path is an easement on their property already.
Yeah. Would have just been
That's
nice to
not- that's
see the
not going
driveway.
away.
Yeah, would have been nice to see curb cuts.
It's
That's me.
They
clearly
share a
just
curb cut.
show.
They share a curb cut because it wouldn't, we wouldn't meet it if we didn't share the curb cut. So they do share the curb cut, half on each side.
right there, yep.
Nat, your hand is raised again?
yeah, just a question for Leslie. So this would have been a freeze plan had they known, right? So it would have been freeze in RC2. Would that have been the case in this or no?
Perimeter plan would have done it, maybe.
Oh, okay. All right.
No.
No, a perimeter plan would
Sorry.
not,
Not
would
to
not
mention,
have.
Yeah.
Perimeter plan would not have frozen the zoning. You have to have an AR plan. And, these people were notified about it and they didn't follow up, didn't follow, what was happening at town meeting. Our C2 was listed on the survey that was submitted with their building permit application. So it was an oversight in building and zoning because the survey referenced RC2. So the permit was issued and here we are trying to, divide the lots now. So this is definitely something that needs to be corrected in some way. And as Megan put in the staff report, she suggested a contribution for the bike path. And typically the board has asked for $2,000 per dwelling unit for ongoing maintenance or added amenities or that sort of thing. And there are lots of bike paths in this area. And it's one other thing, there's not an anomaly in our bylaw. What has happened here is a result of the state law. It's nothing in our local zoning bylaw.
Yeah, it's in 40A.
Nat?
No, that's kind of, she's answering more than what I'm asking, which is good, because I'm not really sure what else to ask, because I haven't seen anything like this. I don't remember anything like this. So, but the good part is it's gone to R5, which is what we want. So this is really a kind of a complicated housekeeping issue, to be honest. So it's just like the last application, an unusual situation that, can happen. So thank you.
Yeah, I agree. It's already there. I think it's really more intent to be housekeeping from the changing of the zoning, and we're just cleaning things up from the past. But I will open it up to the public for questions or comments. Meg, if you see anybody raising their hand, please.
I have mine up when you get around to it.
Okay.
I'm not seeing anyone from the public with their hand raised.
Okay, then Linda, I won't close the public hearing yet to the public. Seeing you want to speak, go ahead.
I understand even I voted in favor of these bike path donations when I was on the planning board, but in this particular odd case, it was a confluence of problems with people, not necessarily with Tyler because he doesn't know anything about this stuff. But there is a sidewalk already there, not that old. There is a bike path already there, which is Surfside, which connects to other bike paths, which connects to other sidewalks. So I don't know what the purpose would be with Tyler having to pay $2,000 a lot to go where that we already aren't going. I mean, it's not out in the middle of nowhere where there's no sidewalk or bike path already. Because all of these that connects with the fairgrounds one, connects down by the school, it connects to the one going up over the hill. So I don't know where we'd go with this. I'd love it if it was waived or just charge the one lot, the problem lot with 2,000, because the other lot was already okay, conforming.
Well, Linda, my comment with that would be, as you know, sometimes we do have sidewalks and bike paths already in existence where it is, and we'd like the contribution to go for maintenance or construction on other areas when we've already done that here. And I don't think when they had any contribution prior to this, or I think we would waive it, but they are creating the two legal lots, and we're asked to clean this up. So I
just made to point out, Mr. Chairman, there's only one lot that we're creating actually, because the other lot was already
in existence. Yes,
yeah, so that's why I'm saying if it's come down to 2,000 for the new quote unquote lot, to leave that duplex standing on its own, I appreciate that. But that's the problem lot, not the other one.
Leslie, do you have a comment on that? I know we're looking at 2,000 per lot with one that was already in existence. Do you think that's reasonable?
Well, usually it's 2,000 per dwelling unit.
Mm-hmm.
The board has waived some of that in the past when there are existing units. So, waiving it for the ones that exist is reasonable, but I think the new ones should be covered.
Okay.
What would that total be? 2,000 period?
That would be 4,000 because it's a duplex.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. There was also the problem with the building department because they didn't catch it either.
Well, your client is still getting the benefit, even if the building department didn't catch it, and now we're making it right. We've already, it looks like you made a point about not charging for the existing, just the others. So I'm happy to leave it at the 4,000.
Okay.
So I will open or see if there's anybody else in the public that cares to comment since we continue discussion.
We'll make a motion, then we close the public hearing, sir.
Second.
Motion's been made by Barry, seconded by Nat to close. Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Now on to the merits.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the application as submitted with findings and discussion that we've had with staff as well too on this one.
And the condition
This is-
was number 2.
Yeah, and Megan may want to add something else, so let me just back down for a second here.
I just, for the exact language of the motion, wanted to clarify, I'll edit condition number 2 to read that a contribution in the amount of $4,000 shall be gifted to the town, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think you and I were on the same page with that. So my motion now still stands at this point, sir.
Thank you, Barry. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion's been made by Barry, seconded by Dave. Roll call. Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you very much, Linda.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. I think we are at Nantucket Hotel, 77 Easton Street. And for Carl, I believe you were here, so we would ask that you be a sitting member on this application.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you. Okay, Paul Santos presenting. Is Paul here?
Paul's here, as is Mark Snyder. I'm just bringing him over.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Paul and Mark, is there anyone else that I should be bringing over as part of the application team?
No, that's it, Megan.
Okey-doke.
Okay. Thank you. Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors and Mark Snyder with the Nantucket Hotel on behalf of this application for an amendment to a previously granted special permit. If you recall, we were before the board last month with the original proposal, which entailed a few different items with regard to the Nantucket Hotel. The application, as previously submitted, entailed the construction of a new freestanding building that will be used for staff housing. It entailed, I believe, 7 one-bedroom, small one-bedroom units for manager staff housing. That was an addition to the existing hotel building. The second component was the renovation or work on the East Cottage, which involved adding additional ground cover and at the time adding the requirement or adding the request for additional bedrooms for rental purposes within the East Cottage. We listened to the board. We listened to a number of abutters, some of whom participated in the meeting, some who participated via emails with concerns. Not necessarily all concerns with regard to the application, but maybe concerns with the current operation and issues that they may have on a daily basis, or they feel they have with regard to the current operation. So we continued the hearing to this evening. We have through staff modified our application to entail the following, and I'll read from, this is essentially what's in the staff report, but is also in an email that I had sent to the staff. Moving forward, we'll be eliminating the staff building and will limit the requested work to the East Cottage only. We will still need a waiver of ground cover, and we'll be requesting that 3 additional guest bedrooms and 2 manager apartments containing 1 bedroom each be added to the east cottage. Mark has also reached out to neighbors since our last meeting, and Mark will be speaking directly to conversations that he had with regard to some concerns that were raised at the last meeting. So again, this is still an amendment of a previously granted special permit. And essentially what we're asking to do is replace the east cottage. It's currently a 1-story structure, basically rectangular. What is not ground cover is basically exterior decking. So what we're looking to do is to replace that structure with essentially a modular structure that would house the additional bedrooms and gain us the 2 manager apartments, albeit not the 7 additional we were looking for, but it gain some manager or some employee housing within that existing structure. Previously, the request was an increase in the ground cover on the property from an existing of 50.4 up to approximately 55.8 by eliminating the freestanding staff building. We're essentially going from an additional essentially 1.5% of ground cover. To recap, the original property was under limited commercial, which allowed 50% ground cover. It was changed to the CN commercial neighborhood, which allows 40% ground cover. So we are currently right now at 50.4% ground cover. So we are over the CN, and we are just over by approximately 0.5% over what is now allowed, or what was allowed under the LC zone. The increase based on the plan that I had submitted previously of the ground cover for the East Cottage was approximately 825 square feet. I think when it comes down to how we'll actually lay that out, it may be less, but for the purposes of this application, I'm going to leave that component under the request. It's important to note that the work at the East Cottage is basically occurring with an area that's already developed, albeit not ground cover. The East Cottage that you see on the plan in front of you is the I-shaped building, if you will, which is along the easterly property line. And that building contains ground cover, which is basically the I-shaped, but it does also contain a fair amount of internal first floor decking and decking on the south elevation. Our proposal would be staying within that, the confines of that footprint. Although, as I said, we are though increasing the ground cover because what is now decking does not count as ground cover. It's physically footprint on the ground, but under the definition of ground cover contained within the zoning bylaw, it does not meet that standard. And what we would be looking to do here is that building, as reconstructed, would be brought into full compliance with the FEMA regulations for work in a flood zone. It would require, obviously, an amendment to the special permit from the planning board. It would also require an order of conditions be issued by the Nantucket Conservation Commission. There were some questions raised at last meeting with regard to the flood zone impacts on the wetlands and so forth. Again, at the end of the day here, we're not really changing any component with regard to the footprint or general size of the area. And in fact, we're bringing the building into compliance with the current flood zone regulations, which in this case would be a crawl space or a crawl type of foundation with pass-through flood venting and the first floor elevated at the appropriate height above the flood zone, which currently in this particular area, your first floor must be built under the 9th edition of the building code of its flood zone +1. There is a 1-foot freeboard built into the 9th edition of the building code. So the building essentially would be increasing that second floor, would be gaining some additional bedrooms for both staff and guests. And we've eliminated the larger of the two buildings we had proposed, which was an approximately 2,135 square foot staff building, which again was going to be elevated and connected to the existing hotel. That component of the application is off the table. And therefore the only relief that we really need now has to do essentially with ground cover. The other relief that we had was based on the fact that we were altering a pre-existing non-conforming structure. The existing East Cottage is conforming with regard to setbacks. So we're eliminating that component from the application. So it's basically ground cover. And essentially we have a component of parking waiver in there also, although we're not adding any, we're not taking away from any of the existing parking that's utilized on the property. I'd like to have Mark kind of come in now if he could and kind of update you on some of the conversations that he had with regard to reaching out to the neighbors. And then I can follow up and we can happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Mark, welcome whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Oh, good. Sorry. I keep coming in and out. Well, thank you. I actually thought last month's meeting was extremely helpful and made me very aware of a lot of things. I have spoken to an extensive amount of our neighbors, the Ganellas, who are closest to this building. I believe we're very pleased with our discussion and what we're doing. And that was positive. The Little family and our neighbors and also the Adlers have a lot of concerns about the general operation of the hotel, which we've been addressing and continue to address with them. I think that's positive. And, Dr. Butterworth raised a question of fairness when you increase ground cover. And I hadn't ever thought about the difference between commercial and residential. And I sort of agreed with him. And we decided to take out the building that really created more of the ground cover issue so that we would be much simpler in what we're doing. So the bottom line, I think, is that we're asking for one bedroom above what's already previously permitted so that we can include 2 manager apartments in this, which we desperately need. And I hope that this is a thoughtful and appropriate addition to the hotel.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Board members, any questions or comments on the revision? No hands. Meg, maybe you can answer this. I know, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Emily Molden had commented at last meeting. Is she here? She is.
She is.
She is. Emily, do you have any opinion on this? If you wouldn't mind.
Hi there, Mr. Chair. Emily Molden with the Nantucket Land Council. Thanks for the opportunity to make some comments. Yeah, I guess I'm sort of just processing what was presented. I don't know if I was looking at a different version or if there was a plan or a list of these changes in the online packet. I didn't actually get a chance to see them or review it. So I'm kind of just going through right now what was looking at the plan from last time. I think I definitely overall would still have some concerns with the waiver request on the ground cover. Obviously, the expansion of use, I certainly understand the applicant's interests in wanting some more space and the reasons for that. In general, the town meeting obviously voted to change the zoning down there. And I still just think that requesting for the additional ground cover, the additional more structural space from deck to enclosed building, the increase in use is not in the best interest of the neighborhood, and it isn't necessarily appropriate. I sort of wonder what the difference is in this instance from anyone else who might just find that they need a little bit more. So I kind of have a hard time seeing the real justification in this instance that would be different from any other property or application. I know that it's not the planning board's purview to deal with the the order of conditions that the Conservation Commission will need to issue. That obviously is a different process. I do still have some concerns around the how close the adjacent wetlands are to some of the work that would be done, but that's not really this board's purview. But I am still concerned in general about the increase, the waiver request for increased ground cover and what precedent that sets for other properties and other locations. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Appreciate the comments. Board members, before I open it up to or if there's anybody else within the general public that would like to speak. Carl Borchert, your hand's up.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I had a couple of comments that I would like to make. I would yield to Vice Chair Iverson first, if you'd like, as a board member, and I can speak after him.
You're welcome to continue. He put his hand up. Go ahead.
You go ahead, Carl.
Okay. I had a few ideas of mitigation measures that might help the situation without taking a lot of time, possibly to take some pressure off of North Avenue and the neighbors in that area. I thought about some satellite parking lots that might be an idea to look into for Mr. Schneider and his staff. I don't know if they could make an arrangement with Blue Flag over at the beach side and have a shuttle or have their employees walk over from there. And also the town is not operating the Jetties Beach tennis courts this summer. I don't know if you could set up some parking for your staff there and bring them to the hotel. I don't know if you would consider removing the fire truck and the bus from the cobblestone pull-off and use that to pick up and drop off employees and some light deliveries through the front door. A lot of businesses who do not have a back delivery area will receive products through the front door of the building. You know, this is just some brainstorming. I don't know if it's appropriate now at this point. You know, some light material could come through the front door using the, I'm not sure how they would get up the stairs. And you know, the North Avenue neighbors have had some concerns about trash and noise. I would think that a curfew of 10 p.m. would be more appropriate than 11 p.m. That would be strictly enforced for employees relaxing and carrying on outside behind the building. I think the town bylaw is 10 p.m. in the core district. I might be wrong. Someone could correct me. I would feel more comfortable with 10 p.m. than 11 p.m. But if the neighbors agree to 11, that's fine. I do not know if the HVAC units can be moved to the roof of the building and soundproofed. That may be prohibitively expensive. I don't know. Or maybe they can be better soundproof where they are as a nuisance to some of the neighbors in the North Avenue area. So these are just some brainstorming ideas. At this point in the public hearing, I don't know if it's appropriate. Might have been better in June. And in closing, you know, I would comment that this is my personal feelings. The Nantucket Hotel has done a number of things for community service. They have a Christmas special for locals who buy dinner and get a free room. They have put up linesmen for storm response in the wintertime for reduced rates, I believe. They have provided help for Puerto Rico and hurricane relief. These are good efforts to help and assist our community. The previous owner ripped off the tradesmen in the community and went into litigation for years. I think Mr. Schneider and his organization have been good neighbors overall and helped our community when we need it. And I think everybody here who's listening today should really remember that. I know that I don't live next to the Nantucket Hotel personally, but you know, I'm just trying to brainstorm some ideas to take some heat off North Avenue. Could you move some of the operation to the east side by the Eastern Cottage? But we need to remember that this business has been responsive to some of our needs as a community over the years, and I think that's important. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mark, if you'd be so patient, Dave had his hand raised before. Maybe he might ask another question that you can respond to. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe this isn't the appropriate time, but I mean, I do appreciate all of Carl's points. I tell you, my biggest concern, and I realize that they have really kind of tuned this back some, but my concern is the message we as a board send when we start nickel and diming ground coverage. Clearly it's a very successful business. Mr. Snyder has done a very good job with it. And I don't think anyone's questioning that. I think the question for me is when is a piece of property, when is the use maxed out? And when there's this many neighbors writing letters and voicing concerns, it leads me to believe that we're there. And even if it's a small change, it's still adding to the use. And I just am concerned that if we give him one extra foot, what's going to stop NIR from coming to us next meeting and wanting an extra foot on each one of their properties? So that's my biggest concern here. Thanks.
Dave. Mark?
Well, I really appreciate the suggestions that were made, Carl. I love the idea of the satellite parking. I love the idea of Jetty's parking. The fire truck we're going to have to negotiate on because I really love that, but I understand what you're trying to accomplish. It was the neighbors on North Avenue that had proposed 11 o'clock. And the challenge we have is everyone is working until 10 o'clock. And we're just setting ourselves up for failure to say a staff member can't go outside after 10 o'clock because they need a little steam to burn up. That's why 11 o'clock was agreed to. The HVAC units, it is a big challenge for us, and we have spent a fortune to mitigate sound. This building is completely detached from that, and this building will have nothing to do with North Avenue because it's on the other side of the property. So it really should have no impact on North Avenue at all. But I love some of your suggestions. And Dave, I just want to respond and say that our greatest crisis is staff housing. And I understand the concept of, piecemealing a property, but we're being very careful. We have 825 square feet. That's a very small amount of square footage. That's all we're talking about, which already mostly have decks on it. And all we're talking about is enclosing it because the building will look more attractive and fit in the neighborhood better. So it isn't weird looking to be able to put in 2 manager apartments. I think it's interesting. The more managers we have live on site, the less neighborhood issues there are going to be. And the neighbors' issues really have nothing to do with this building, but they have to do with the fact that we're a hotel in a residential neighborhood, and we need to be a good neighbor, and we want to be a good neighbor. So I guess I would ask consideration that to build a manager apartment that's habitable and decent, we need a little space to do that, and that's our challenge.
Thank you, Mark. Let's see, any other hands? Seeing none, I would like to comment as well. I've taken a couple of notes. Thank you, Carl, for some of the suggestions. I'm a little concerned about the short-term parking fix because that's exactly what it is. It's short-term. You can get an agreement unless it was a long-term agreement. We all know something, maybe the tennis courts and that parking is going to be needed in the future. The hotel, that might be needed. So whatever we're doing, it's a short fix. Once you actually build the unit and you're looking at that parking, if it's not available in the future, then you're back to square one. So I'd be cautious about that. And as far as the staff housing, as noted in the last month's meeting with the comments that we were making, Dave had commented, when is a property, maximized and built out? There are ground cover issues that are a part of what we're looking for in certain zonings, and it was reduced for a reason to 40%, and it was voted in. So any increase, whether it's from the previous zoning on top of that, is a lot. And I would like to point out, it is a good thing that you're looking to do 2 manager apartments. I think it's needed. It helps with your staff, and it actually helps to control what's going on there if a manager is on site. I would like to comment, though, you're also adding 3 additional guest bedrooms. So they're guest bedrooms, and you're kind of going in a circle, chasing the tail. You're creating more guest rooms, but obviously you're creating more staff for managers. And I don't know how many managers, what the proportion or percentage is that would manage so many guests. But if you're 3 guest bedrooms, and even at 2 per bedroom, that might be 6 additional guests. So you're creating the issue instead of just making those 3 additional guest bedrooms for the manager or staff house apartments. So I would like to see I do like the comment or the notes that say it's already disturbed. So we're not looking to add and construct additional space that has not already been disturbed by the decks that are already in place. So that's at least comforting in my mind. But I would just like to confirm what exactly the increase is from the 50.4%. Where are we looking to go as a final percent increase? Because I know under the previous proposed ground cover, it was going to be 50.4% to 55.8%. Where are we going with, with these, did I hear another 1.5% or something? And I'd just like for clarification from Mark or Paul.
I'm happy to go in and explain, to talk about that if you want, John, or you want me to take a
please, that might help.
Specifically with regard to ground cover, we're looking at anywhere depending, obviously we have a general plan of what this building potentially could look like. And the current application with the 825 additional ground cover, you'd be increasing the ground cover by approximately 1.5%. I think, quite honestly, when you look at the amount of interior space they're adding and the decking they're reducing, we could probably be anywhere from 1 to 1.5%. The current application that you have before you is 1.5. That's going from 825, an additional 825. If that number was brought down to 550 or 575, that would be approximately an additional 1%. So I'm going to say the current application is a 1.5% increase. It may be helpful. We have a general overlay kind of right now of what that building could look like. The initial overlay that I was provided and that I did look at through Mark's office was that the building, and if Megan, if you could bring up that East Cottage, maybe again on the screen, the core of that, or that I shape, if you will, there's actually 4 significant decks that are off the core, one to the east, and then that's the Ganella property, and then one to the west, which is in the interior. You can see those interior decks. The plan would be to reduce the size of those exterior decks, thereby bringing people from the outside to the inside, in eliminating more congregating area, if you will, on those outer decks by enclosing and making those decks smaller. Whether that presents a benefit to the neighbors and it limits the amount of outdoor space and brings more of this building to the inside, I think a case could be made. Whereas you're eliminating outdoor deck area, it's bringing people into their rooms or into the manager apartments, and it's eliminating the amount of area where noise is emanating from an exterior deck. With regard to the bedrooms, the bedrooms, whereas we're adding the bedrooms within this component, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, we would still be under the amount of bedrooms that are permitted on this property with the previous permits. So right now, Mark is under the amount of bedrooms that he is allowed to have on this property. So whereas we're asking for additional bedrooms within the East Cottage, it's not necessarily an ask of additional bedrooms for the purposes of the permit, because those bedrooms are already permitted. If anything, the only additional, the way the bedrooms are broken down, I believe it might be staff housing or staff bedrooms, guest bedrooms. We're not asking for any additional guest bedrooms. What they are asking for is the addition of the staff bedrooms. So with regard to the number of bedrooms that are allowed on this property, the additional 3 do not raise to an area where we have to amend the permit with regard to that component of it. And I think, John, that you mentioned too, that the footprint, and, you know, I can probably show, or I'm happy to show if we need be, is kind of an overlay of that East Cottage as it exists today, and then what it potentially could look like afterwards. And I think you'd get more of a sense of, you know, we're not expanding. It's basically the footprint of it. Yes, it's an expansion of ground cover under the definition of the regulations. There's no question about that. But when you look at staying within that footprint with regard to what is core building, what is exterior decking, and what that will look like at the end of the day, the basic footprint itself is not going to increase. And in fact, in some cases, the exterior area in which guests can congregate is actually going to be limited because the exterior decking on the entire building will be made smaller.
While I have you with the engineering question, is there a lot that is abutting that may have extra square footage that they can sell to you, whether it be behind or on the side or something, where they're not an undersized, non-conforming lot, where they actually have a little extra space? So instead of getting permission from us to go above, maybe is there abutting land that you might be able to purchase that would allow your lot to conform to the 50%? And in essence, instead of going from a 50.4%, maybe going to, you know, a legal 50%.
Yeah, we haven't looked at that, John. And quite honestly, under the definition of ground cover, it could be wetlands, and it's sure. Not like land area. So I can use wetlands for the purposes of ground cover. But we have not looked at that, looked at that at all.
Okay. Carl, your hand is up.
Just a question for Mr. Santos. If my math is correct, with 1.5% more, you're going from 50.4 to 51.9 as opposed to 55.8%, which was the original proposal in June?
That is correct.
Thank you.
John, sorry.
Go ahead, Nat.
Yeah,
I saw Mark's hand up, but it's down now. So
looking for my new hand button. Couldn't go fast enough. I have to ask this question. Leslie might have it in her head. Leslie, when this was done originally, which was, I can't remember, 06, 07-ish, was LC still there, or was it CN yet? I don't think we invented CN yet, but at that time, but I'm not 100% sure.
It was in the LC district at the time.
Okay, so all the work, what we see on the ground now, was done under LC.
I would say most of the work was done under LC. The main assumption was after.
Okay, and I don't want to rehash some of the things that was said the last meeting, but we didn't have the FEMA map, flood 10 feet foundation stuff at that time. I don't believe. I mean, we might have had some regulation, but we didn't have what we have now. Am I correct in saying that, Leslie?
The regulations have changed over time, yes.
Okay, so when we put CN in, again, just to sort of restate what was said at the last meeting, this specific spot sort of an oasis in the middle of ROH, in theory. I mean, when we talk about NIR and making things say that, I mean, they're in a completely different area. This is an unusual, I do admit, we have never had, that I can remember, a ground cover waiver like this. But on the other hand, they also got caught in a zoning snafu that we didn't really have a give. We certainly couldn't give them CDT down here, because that just isn't the right thing. But if this place was in a different spot on the island, it would be in CDT if it was downtown somewhere else. So it's an anomaly place. I mean, they've given back quite a bit. They've given back more than half of the request. And I'm looking at this as it's in LC more than I am CN, because of the previous work that was done during that zoning district when that was in place, which I don't believe we talked about at the last meeting. I don't remember talking about this exactly. I mean, got to figure out a way to control, Mark, what, I don't understand what they're complaining about in North Ave. I remember what North Ave looked like. I can tell you, it's a lot better looking now than it used to be. Come up with some, like Carl is talking about, you need some unique ideas down there, in my opinion. Even though this addition is on the opposite side of the property, and I agree that it probably has not going to affect anything, it's, in the end, it's still the same property. So any change that comes in is going to get a reaction regardless of what it may or may not do. So as a board, we have to look at it as a holistic footprint, not just, well, it's over here, so it doesn't really matter. Well, there's no other entrance. There's no other place to drive. So, I think we cleaned up that issue with Easton Street the last meeting, Leslie. There is a condition that the road gets widened if those trees come down, I believe. I remember that so vividly 15 years ago. So that issue is a non-issue in my opinion, because the road was narrow before this project was done. So it's just hard to remember. So I'd like to see some kind of increase in conditions, Mark, for some mitigation for the neighbors on North Ave. I just don't have a perfect answer to that in order to grant this waiver for me. So that's where I'm at the moment. I feel like we're talking about a Mullins Management District application at this point. This is getting like that with the decks, and it's just never seen this yet down here, but that's how I feel about it right now.
Thank you, Nat. Leslie. Your hand is up, Leslie?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Would the board like for me to read the finding that you would need to make to grant the additional ground cover? Would that be?
That'll be helpful. Sure.
Okay. It's kind of long, so.
Okay.
An extension, alteration, or change to an existing structure or a new structure that will result in an increase in the pre-existing non-conforming ground cover ratio of a lot may be allowed through the issuance of a special permit, provided that the special permit granting authority makes the following findings. There are three. The first one, an increase in ground cover ratio will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing nonconformity. The second one, the resulting ground cover ratio is consistent with the character of the surrounding neighborhood. And the third one, the extension, alteration, or change to the existing structure or the new structure is conforming to other dimensional requirements of this chapter. So that's the finding that you all need to consider.
Thank you. So let me ask you, what is consistent with the neighborhood? Where do we have anything to compare it to? On the Harbor House? If we're starting to get into percentages, and the increase would it be detrimental? But I think that's a catch-22 question. It would only be detrimental if it's singular where it stood above everything else and it's not consistent with the neighborhood. So I would ask, what is consistent with the neighborhood? I do appreciate the revision. I appreciate the less the percentage that we went from 50.4 to 55.8 down to 51.9. And I appreciate all Mark has done for the building, the success of the building, the community service. And I still look at, what we do as a board, and we try and be fair, and there's things in place and zoning and percentages in place for a reason. And even though it was reduced to the 40% from the 50, you have to keep in mind it was already over the 50%. And I'm just stating my opinion from that standpoint. And land council and Emily's comments from the previous meeting and this meeting, everyone's appreciative of the revisions and the willingness to come down, but the bottom line is it's still over where it was already over. So we are increasing, and Dave said something last month that has stuck in my head, and it's at what point does a development get overutilized or maximum or maximize their build out? At what point are we there, or are we just going to inch away? And in 5 years, what if we need another 1.5%? So I would just like to think about that. And that's why I tried to maybe suggest something from an abutting lot, because there's not just one abutter. There's abutters behind there, and I haven't explored if there was any additional, land that can be purchased. And actually, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because then you can conform under the zoning. So there potentially could be an option. Nat, was that you?
Yeah, just we're splitting hairs and threading needles, and really it's about the use. I mean, he could take away a room or two that don't bring cars and add two rooms that have a car. I mean, I'm just throwing that around. I mean, I see what restaurants do, and it drives me nuts. They hold parking spaces with mopeds, actually. I've seen it this year. Guy admitted it. We do some goofy stuff downtown to keep a parking space. But those are existing footprints that have never changed since whenever. This place is so different because of how it was taken from a mess, a renovated mess, to what you see now. And I just don't see. I mean, is there a way for them to take that structure that's there now and rate and make it, add to it, raise it higher, to add space without adding ground cover? No, but they're removing that building though, John, is what I'm saying.
No.
There's got to be a reason that they're not trying to add to the existing building. It probably structurally isn't strong enough, or the code requires them to raise the foundation, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So there's probably a lot of other moving parts with this. I'm looking at it like the improvements that have been made down there are so drastic compared to what it used to be, that I see this as not as big of a it's not like they're taking a fresh project and adding ground cover just because they feel like it. It's sort of been running for 15 or however many years it is now, 13, whatever it is. And it's under a special permit, correct, Leslie? Right now, correct? That building is, and have we ever had a complaint about any of the stuff that we've read in the packet? Has there ever been a zoning complaint or something that's come in to say that all these different problems exist?
No,
I mean,
not that I recall.
I mean, this certainly isn't the West Ender or the other places that we've had to have continuous changes over the years in their permitting. So, I know how you guys feel and I hear you, and I'm not even saying you're completely wrong at all. I'm just saying this is a little different than the typical request of, and like I said, I don't remember ever having this request before, but I can understand it's in our, purview to do this, which I just don't remember. Anyway, somebody's got their button not pressed. Anyway, that's all I have. We'll have to just see how this goes.
Yeah, it's a tough one. We're just talking and adding our comments, and I just worry about the slippery slope that we're going to be presenting to other downtown properties, hotels that have already been maxed out, and adding a little bit more, or a little bump out, or a little addition, or something like that. And they'll just justify, well, it's only another percentage, or it's 3% more or something. It's not going to make a difference. And I understand what you're saying, Nat. I really appreciate that. I don't know of any necessary filed complaints. We've already stated that Mark is doing a wonderful job because we live here year round. We see it and we appreciate it. But you could maximize the property to 90% and they can still do a wonderful job. So the increase, whether it be 1.5% or 10%, it shouldn't be the issue that we're addressing. It should be, do we feel comfortable increasing what's already been increased and over the percentage? And I'm bringing that out because we do take each individual application on its own, and we look at it and we explore the pros and cons. And I just, as another board member would say, we don't want to set a precedent. I think Barry said that in one of the previous applications, that he was worried that it was going to set something. And if we start putting this in motion, do you think other properties similar to this would take this and roll with it and increase? Because business is good right now. It's great. And I just don't want to present that. And there are some wetland areas there. There's some land council issues there. There's a reason why we had the 50%. So I'm still stuck on that from a practical standpoint of what we already have in place in our bylaws. I'd like to get relief and, offer other suggestions. And one suggestion would be, trading off a couple of things. What if, would it make a difference if 2 manager apartments, because we're trying to add 3 additional guest rooms, what if one of those 3 guest rooms was turned into a manager apartment? So we had 2 additional guest rooms and 3 manager. It would help with staffing, and it's still going to make me feel better about the extra percentage, but it would feel much better that we're supplying employee housing. Dave, your hand is raised.
Thank you, John. Listen, I don't want to keep, I definitely don't want to repeat myself, but I think what Leslie read really, I think, made it even more clear about the hurdles we have to, as a board, cross to approve this. And I just, again, have a difficult time. I mean, both the Harbor House and the White Elephant are in CN. It's only 1.5%, but in reality, it's 500 square feet. So this isn't about Mark Schneider and his hotel, because he puts out a very good product that people enjoy. And it's not that we don't appreciate that. It's not that the town doesn't appreciate everything he does for them. I think the real problem, at least for me here, and I'll just say it again and not say it again, is the precedent we set by allowing him additional ground cover when there is multiple commercially zoned hotels around him that will, I guarantee you, be looking for the same thing. More ground covers, more rooms, which is more income. And they'd be foolish not to push it if we said yes here. So, yeah, again, I apologize, and I just want to reiterate, Mark runs a very tight ship and has a beautiful hotel. But unfortunately, this is a line I can't cross. Thanks.
Carl?
Mr. Chair, I would yield to Mr. Rector if he has anything to say.
Barry, you're
being called out.
Your
That's
hand's
okay.
not
I've
up.
got, you know what? I will give you a comment at this point, but I still want you all to kind of proceed a little bit more. I've just been doing a little background research, so I respectfully just want to hear from you both still.
Go ahead, Carl.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, what is the status of the 10 or 11 lot subdivision for luxury homes, the Harbor House? Is that on the books, or is it gone, or is it going to be developed? Just for my knowledge, since I was gone in 2018, I sat through that. Ms. Snell or Ms. Trudell, can you tell me what the status of that development is?
I'm off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I don't think any houses have been built in there, but I do think that it is still active, and the infrastructure may have even been installed. But it's still a possibility.
Okay, thank you. The reason I'm bringing that up is that the Harbor House is essentially front lawn bordering South Beach Street, where they grandfathered a 10 or 11 lot subdivision years ago for luxury homes. And my point being, what kind of, Mr. Chair, you asked about other properties in the neighborhood. That one is right around the corner on a congested street, South Beach Street. And for the sake of argument, what is the impact of 11 luxury homes on C Street and South Beach Street and Easton Street compared to 1.5% increase in ground cover? My argument would be it's a lot more. Having listened to this very intelligent and thoughtful conversation here, what is the impact of an 11 lot subdivision at the Harbor House? We need to think about that as a board very seriously, because to me personally, I understand Mr. Vice Chair very well. I really respect his opinion on this. But it's just a comparison in the neighborhood that I'm making between that development and what the Nantucket Hotel is asking for, just for food for thought. Thank you.
You, Carl. Any other hands raised? Mark, yes. Oh, I think you're muted, Mark.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting an education from this, so thank you. I think I would just like to say that the cost of construction on Nantucket is extraordinarily high. And to build this building is going to cost probably $3 million. And the 3 guest rooms are there just to help to allow us to finance the construction cost. And we want to put in 2 manager apartments, which won't generate any revenue for us. And that was the balance to be able to do something that was prudent and proper. I understand where you're coming from. And I guess the problem what I'm struggling with is we're probably the tallest building in town at 5 stories high. And it's kind of bizarre for me to be thinking about 800 square feet relative to being this very high building with all these people in it, when we're trying to not make it more dense. I don't want it to be more dense and more unattractive. I want it to be attractive. So I've struggled because there's literally no other place for us to put our staff. And I guess that is not the issue that you're raising, but I'm just sharing with you the practical problems we have in our location.
Mark, I guess the first thought that comes to my mind with the $3 million build would be, I'd rather see you tear down the building, make a little bit more parking, open space, and use that $3 million to buy employee housing, maybe outside of the downtown core district, to give a little outdoor space for the staff, maybe a backyard, and have public transportation passes, bike paths, and things like that. So that would be my only comment to the $3 million. I'm into building real estate, and I think that for what you're getting there for the 3 or 5 bedrooms, I can probably find you a $3 million 5-bedroom somewhere. It's not going to be in the heart of downtown but it will be on the outskirts, but it might have the same impact you're trying to doing, and maybe even a better quality of life. And that's just kind of getting off track. You have a business plan, and I don't want to change that. But I think what Dave's saying, what everyone's saying is, we'd like to agree with you. We'd like to side with you. We like what you're doing. We'd like you to continue to doing what you're doing with business. But this is a procedural issue that we're afraid that might open up a can of worms. And whether it be 1.5%, 10%, or 50%, it's still something that might impact future decisions on future properties. And this would be a situation where people use this as an example. And we're just having a hard time approving something that isn't necessarily an unreasonable request, but it's unreasonable in the sense that it's going to set a precedent in our bylaws. So forgive us if we're being a little bit too front with you, but it is a concern for the future, not just one issue, one vote. Barry, your hand's up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I still want to reserve comment here at this point, but I think the board has pretty well flushed out its thought, and we seem to be going in circles a little bit here at the moment. I'm going to ask maybe just to turn it over to the public to see if there's any other additional insights that'll come up, and then I'd like to chime in toward the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Meg, is there anyone, neighbors, anybody in the audience that wants to, in the public, that wants to comment?
I'm not seeing anyone. Oh, hold on. We have Sarah Little.
Great. Sarah, when you get set, welcome. Thank you.
Hi, this is Sarah Little. I'm at 4 North Avenue. And just a couple comments. The surveyor said there wouldn't be any additional rooms. I think there is going to be 1 additional room above the, is that being asked for? And the other thing is that everyone keeps talking about the Bob Matthews's fiasco, but before Bob Matthews, there was a lot more open space there. And so comparing yourself to the worst possible outcome is not totally fair when you're considering the neighbors who've been there for many, many years. Anyways, we're happy. We're very happy with that Mark is managing this property now. So I don't want to have any misunderstandings there. You say there's been no complaints. We have tried lots of places to complain and not gotten anywhere. And I wasn't aware that the planning board could do anything about noise or traffic or street blockage or cigarette and pot smoke. So if you guys are where we should complain, then please let us know, because we haven't done it because we didn't know that it would have any effect. The other thing is that a neighborhood includes the residential neighbors, not just the hotels nearby. So I'm not sure why we are left out. And then I'm going to just finish though that Mark and his general manager have been working very hard these last few weeks since the meeting, and we had a meeting with them to address our concerns. And we're really, really appreciative of that. And we did agree at 11 o'clock because we don't want to, it's a very difficult environment to manage with so many employees living on site, and using their outdoor space is right in the heart of the neighborhood. It's behind a privet fence. But so their smoking, their noise, their music is right in our yards and on our porches. But we know it's really tight. So that's why we said, well, 11 o'clock would be okay. 10 o'clock would be better. But we're trying to squeeze the employees into a place where they have no outdoor space to live. And it's just really hard. So this is one of the reasons that having extra employees and extra guests isn't really to our liking. But if Mark can manage the employees such that they aren't up at 3 a.m. having parties outside, which they do, and we don't call the planning board about it. We call Carlos. So that's why you haven't heard the complaints, but it's chronic. It's every summer. There's a new manager. They're trying to fix these problems. And I, for one, really appreciate it. But I feel like it's really bursting at the seams right now. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Can I get anyone else from the public?
No.
Mark, your hand's up.
Oh, that was the old one.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Barry, we're going to finally get your reserved comment here.
There you go. Yeah, it's important to kind of step back and just really understand where, my peers are with this, where the public is with it as well too. I just want to go back to Sarah Little's thing. And it's my infamous spiel about special permits, which is one of the things that this board loves to be able to do when the opportunity arises, because it gives us an ability to go back to whoever that permit goes to. And if there are legitimate problems that are occurring, we can reopen a public hearing and address those things. Of course, the first thing I want to put as an emphasis to that real quickly is that, of course, we want you to work with whoever that other party is to try to resolve it. But if the issues are continuously being recurrent and there is really no resolution, that's when, a formal application could come before the planning board, says, we'd like to reopen the special permit on this property for these reasons. And of course, we're not going to want just a lot of hearsay. We're going to want some pretty solid documentation, but believe me, the last thing any applicant comes before us with that has to require a special permit is for us to reopen that special permit. So there's a lot of weight and power that sits there with that as well too. So I just wanted to preface that. I also heard too that you said the neighbors are being left out. I think, I'm a little taken aback by that, especially with the dialogue that I've heard from my board members today. I think we are trying to keep in mind, what it is about the neighborhood that has to be balanced against this one particular application. Truthfully, I'm not ready to close this yet on a personal basis. I as much as I hate to say it, I'd like to give it one more month to be able to look at this a little bit further. I think having listened to you all, there may be some things that we should be looking at as a board above and beyond just where this property sits. But personally, before I get there, I want some time to be able to really flesh some of these issues out in terms of what that viability is going to be. And I don't want to get too deep into it because all of a sudden it may turn into, when we're promising this, we're promising that. I'd respectfully like about one more shot at this for a month to be able to do some homework and see if there are some things that we can look at as a board in terms of potential mitigation factors in that area, because it is a very unique area in terms of what's there with the hotel, the residences behind it, and the wetlands. And they, you know, all those things are kind of competing against each other in terms of where does the center of gravity lie with it. And here we are with an application that, as we said before, and I'm glad to hear the board saying this still, that, you know, we're trying to hold the line with things. We take very seriously when we set certain applications in place or certain bylaws in place, that we're not just looking at them arbitrarily. We're trying to take a very hard line look at making those bylaws work consistently every time. And if there are exceptions to the rule, you know, and I think staff has been wonderful with this, we're really good about being able to find the appropriate findings as well too. You know, so this isn't as simple as a set of numbers we're dealing with. This is really about a neighborhood. This is about the hotel, and you know how that functions with Nantucket as well too. And believe me, you got to value that hotel, especially when you look at just what happened with the veranda. You know, and again, with inns closing in the downtown area, these things become more vital. So the equation is got multiple components to it. And I think that's what we need to start looking at. But I think it's time to maybe pull back just a shade further and see if there's just anything else that we really should be looking at. So like I said, as one member of this board, I'm not ready to close the hearing on this yet. And I will promise you it'll be soon, but I'd like a little bit more time. So thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Well, before I comment, Meg, is there anyone else in the public that you see?
There is not.
Okay. My comment would be this, Paul and Mark. Obviously, from last meeting, if you didn't continue, my feeling is that it would have been denied. You've made a lot of revisions. You've spoken to neighbors. You've made a lot of progress. And I think it would be up to you if you think you would like to proceed, because we would maybe close and put it to a vote. However, when you have one board member such as Barry that just spoke and said he'd like more time, that one vote could be the difference between passing or failing. Just listening to members of the board, including myself, maybe it will give you a feel for the position we're in right now. So I don't want to continue this if it's not your intention or for another month, but I would respectfully ask for your opinion if you would appreciate a continuance on this.
Mark, if you want, if I could just add one point before Mark makes his decision, but obviously I think I'm in agree with you, John. Quite honestly, I think we have 3 members right now that you know are not comfortable with the application, and I was going to suggest the same thing that Barry did, and quite honestly, moving forward from my end, I think what I will do is Leslie set forth 3 criteria that the applicant needs to meet, or that the board needs to issue with regard to providing the necessary relief. I'm happy to provide a bullet response to each one of those and why we feel we meet those criteria, why we might be a unique situation as opposed to some of the other abutting properties. So on my end, I'm happy to provide a response on the 3 items Leslie set forth. And then I can also provide an overlay kind of what's there now and what we're asking for with regard to how this looks with regard to what's out there as the footprint of that building as it exists today, and what it would look like in the future, to give you a little bit better idea of what we're actually talking about. So I'll defer to Mark, but those things from our end would be forthcoming. Specifically, again, the 3 items that Leslie spoke to would be a item by item response on why we feel that this board can issue the waiver and feel comfortable that it's a unique situation to this particular property and not set a precedent.
Thank you. Mark?
Well, I think that it's hard to be on a board when your decisions are long-term, and they should be. And I agree, and I think we should do it right. And let's do what we can to have you feel better about whatever the final decision is. And hopefully it can happen next month. But I don't want you to rush something through that isn't thought through and comfortable, because that's what we're all about, is a long-term preservation of a wonderful community. So I agree with you.
Great. Board members, if you're in agreement, I would entertain motion to continue to the August 8th meeting.
Yeah. Make that.
As long as you don't get sick of us.
The motion's been made by Nat. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion's been made to continue by Nat, seconded by Barry. Roll call, Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
This is for continuance to next meeting, correct?
correct.
Yes, aye.
Okay. Carl?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Great. Yes, Dave.
Can I just throw it out there too, that withdrawal without prejudice is better than a no vote for you guys. Just, and I'm not predicting the future, I'm just throwing it out there.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate the time, and we will see you next month.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have Nantucket Realty Trust, Jeff Kashulik, trustee, Van Glider Ave subdivision, 86A, 88 and 88 Old South Road. I believe representing is Danny Petkova. Is anyone here, Meg, for on the applicant's behalf?
Danny and Jeff are both here. I'm just bringing them over. I'm not sure if there's,
I see Danny. Danny.
let's see, Peter Ogren, who is the surveyor, bringing him over.
I see Jeff's on, Danny's on, Peter.
Right here, can you hear me?
Oh.
Yes, welcome.
Jeff and
Peter.
Danny, you're muted. There you,
Hello.
I'm muted.
oh, there you go. There you go.
I'm here. Jeff is with me because his computer, we couldn't connect.
That's okay.
All right.
Welcome. Whenever the dedicated person that would like to speak and present, you have the floor.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, just for a quick point of reference here, could you get Mr. Ogren to rename his file there that as it comes up? Just because this is being viewed by the public. So if Megan, you can handle that, or you can just walk him through how
That's
to.
beyond my technical ability, Barry.
It's
noted.
really, it's strangely enough, it's really pretty simple.
Okay.
It's like a hand raise.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me a minute. I can do it.
Thank you.
Yep.
When you're ready, Meg, let me know.
I mean, I think you all can proceed as I figure this out. That's fine.
Great. All right, welcome. And anyone ready to present? Please go ahead. You have the floor.
Yes, Jeff Kashulik, longtime owner of the property located at Old South Road, subject property. Being presented tonight, I'm going to just give a brief, soft outline of the conceptual part of the project, and I'll turn it over to Peter Ogren for all the construction and engineering aspects of things. Anyways, the project being proposed, Van Gilder Road, is an 11 lot, 11 oversized lots in the RC2 district. 5,000 square foot requirement. Most of the lots are in the 8 to 10 plus thousand square foot zone. All being served with town sewer, town water. I've owned the property for 28 plus years, and primarily have used the property 97% of the time for the land leasing to island landscapers, contractors, etc. This plan right here is the vision is to basically take all the people that have been leasees for all these years, and potentially giving them the opportunity to purchase their own piece of property in a super controlled environment. The vision is clearly a clean commerce park. And 20 plus years ago, I was the lead developer in the sister project down the street called Witherspoon Drive, which is just to the right of the Nosshop entrance. And the difference, or should say, it's similar sized acreage. Witherspoon had a couple more lots. We had geared it to multifamily with a handful of single families, residential only, no commercial. This project would be completely different in that there's a huge need for the commercial aspect of things. And I know back on the pre-plan submission in the middle of December, there was some conversation about looking at alternative zoning changes. I did speak with planning to a small degree, and it's there's probably a difficult thing to do, in that the zoning that would most come closest to how this would be used would be C-Tech, and that's across the board 10,000 square foot requirement land area. So I believe there's four plus lots, 10,000 square foot plus. I just want to most of them are just a hair under the 10,000. However, back to the Commerce Park and the clean style, I'm envisioning a roadway with street tree lined and privet hedges. In the engineering report that Mr. Ogren will go over shortly, there was conversation about notating on the plans where driveway curb cuts, aprons would be. And I really don't want to get that specific at this point right now, because figuring that most of these lots are to be commercial, I'd like the flexibility for end users to be able to dedicate where on the respective lot they would envision their access. In the meantime, leading up to that point, as the developer, I would like to hedge the entire street line, and the hedges are something that could be pulled out at a later point when somebody knows exactly what they're doing with the respective lot. So, anyways, I'm not going to get into anything more from the engineering report from the town. I'll leave that to Mr. Ogren, and any questions after Peter's presentation, be happy to respond to. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Peter, if you'd like.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I think Jeff's pretty well given you an overview of the development itself. And we did receive, as of the very end of last week, the report from Pesci Engineering Associates regarding the engineering aspects of it. And some of them I think are fairly simple engineering issues that we can deal with. But he does say specifically that that we should discuss the waivers. And I actually looked at the waiver list and I thought them to be pretty minimal. He supports the first waiver we've asked, which is relative to the datum. I don't think anybody uses the half-tide datum on Nantucket anymore. Everybody's using NAVD off the satellites, and he supported that. The next waiver that we asked under section 206B14A was landscaping not to be provided at this time. And I think Jeff has indicated what he has in mind as far as the development is concerned. And I think it's fair to say that in anything that Jeff's been involved with prior, he hasn't disappointed the board as far as landscape is concerned. As far as existing trees to be saved during construction, which was the next waiver we asked for, there are some existing trees that are there that were transplanted, that Jeff transplanted. He intends those to stay on site, but to be relocated. And that's why we didn't show them to be saved, but he is planning to save them. Other than that, there are no real significant trees that remain on the site. As far as the next waiver, section 406B3, we've asked to use storm chambers instead of the leach catch basin that you show in your rules and regulations. Leach catch basins don't meet the stormwater standards now, so your consultant has indicated that that's reasonable as well. As far as 413 requiring dry sewer lines, as Jeff mentioned, we have sewer. We intend to tie into the town sewer on Old South Road. And the last one, section 416, deals with landscape as well. So I don't know that there's really anything to discuss there unless some members of the board have some further questions. I think that they're all reasonable and justified. And I would hope that that the board would grant those waivers for the definitive plan. Well, I don't know if the board wants to have any discussion on that item or just have me continue.
Great, continue. Unless there's a board member that has a specific question that wants to interrupt. Not interrupt. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, the next one dealt with the fire department turning in the proposed T turning area that we have shown is consistent with the detail that's in the Nantucket rules and regulations. And we did take a look at a single unit fire truck and it can turn within the area. Jeff has suggested that he's going to go take that sketch and go talk to the fire department about that. As far as the placement of additional fire hydrant, we're willing to place an additional fire hydrant. And I'm assuming that the fire department wants to see it at the beginning of the roadway. As far as the next item is concerned, the network plan showing the road on parcel A, the network plan is GIS, and it does show that structure over the lot line. We're confident that it's not, and we've agreed to go out and locate that on the ground for the definitive plan in our response. As far as item 4 is concerned, lighting in the rules and regulations are as directed by the board. Certainly if the board has some specific lighting requirements that they want, we can make them dark sky compliant. That's what everybody's doing these days anyway. As far as designating a separate lot, actually, this is registered land. The land court usually likes to do that when it finally comes in. So the roadway itself will have a separate lot designation. As I already pointed out, the T turnaround that we show has the dimensions that are in the plates that are included in the subdivision regulations, and we can add those to the detail sheet of the plan. As far as item 7 is concerned, We have no problem with any of those. The street sign at the intersection of Van Gilder Ave and Old South Road. They would like, your consultant would like to see a double stop sign, which is common when you have the bike path. And we do intend to propose a crosswalk at the intersection here, and we provided a detail of the crosswalk. I think we didn't show exactly where it was going to be located. We can add that, but unless the board doesn't think a crosswalk is appropriate, we were going to have one. As far as adding the silt sacks to the new catch basins and also fitting the silt sacks on Old South Road with silt sacks, we can do that and add a straw wattle for erosion control for the contractor, also as a limit of work line. Item 9, Jeff also already mentioned that he would rather not propose asphalt driveway aprons at this time in conceptual locations. Just say that the driveway aprons will be as necessary, because he wants to be able to look at how the lots are used. Some of them may be used in combination. And so it doesn't seem to be a worthwhile endeavor to add those at this particular point in time. The next comments deal with stormwater management, and I can go over those items one by one as well. But I don't think there's any problem that we have with any of them. The only one that I think might bear some discussion is Mr. Pesci recommended that we move the first pair of catch basins, and maybe if we could put up the plan, I could kind of demonstrate what he's talking about.
Meg, could you get that?
I understood she would be able to.
Meg might have stepped away for a minute. I see she's still logged in.
Well, basically, the way we put the first set of catch basins, there's what we call a line basin on Old South Road at the proposed intersection. And we didn't want to encourage any water from Van Gilder to go into those basins. Those basins are only leach basins, and I think they're pretty well clogged. I don't think they're very effective at all. So we wanted to capture all we could, but we didn't want to interfere with the continuity of the bike path. Now, I know there's two ways you can do the bike path. You can either make it be like a handicap ramp and dip it down to the street level and lower the street down, or you can keep the bike path continuous, as has been done on a number of the intersections. We thought in this case, with the amount of traffic that there would be, keeping the bike path contiguous and paving up to the bike path, and then putting beyond the bike path essentially what would be like a ramp down to Old South Road was the way to design it. And that kind of predicated that we didn't want to interrupt the bike path and put a pair of catch basins on the roundings, and we would leave the gutter on Old South Road going just the way it is in I guess basically an easterly direction. Other than that, not agreeing with doing that. I think that as far as preventing additional runoff is concerned, to the maximum extent feasible, the only thing we would be adding would be the little ramp between the bike path and the existing edge of the actual paved surface on Old South Road. The rest of the comments that he has from a technical standpoint on that is not, we don't have any problem with, and what we would normally do in these instances is give a written response back to Mr. Pesci on all those, making the necessary changes. And I think with that, I would, I think that concludes the engineering aspect of our presentation.
Thank you, Peter. Board members, questions, comments, thoughts? Barry, did your hand just go up? Yes, Barry.
Yeah, it did. So you said there was a pre-plan filed on this, correct?
Yeah,
Was
it
it-
it
Yeah,
was
okay.
filed and approved.
Thank you. And so I'm sorry, I didn't quite see that floating around in our packet anywhere, so I might be asking some of the same questions again. I think the questions I want to go to isn't more necessary from the technical aspects, but more importantly, what's kind of gonna go on inside the proverbial four walls. So it leads me to ask some basic questions. First, is this strictly all commercial, or are there going to be residential lots in this subdivision?
You gotta raise your hand, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, well, through the chair, we'll have to go back and forth.
I'm fine with that. Open. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no, sorry, they're intended to be commercial, Barry. However, the beauty of this property is it would give somebody the opportunity to run their business and provide housing for themselves, for their managers, for their employees. There's as I believe I had mentioned at the beginning, they're all oversized lots to zoning. And I mean, this could have been a denser neighborhood, but it's I think a very realistic layout for a small business owner to run an operation. Landscaper, contractor, storage component. That gives you the multi-purpose for either attached, detached, or housing to be included as well. So anyways, and that's hopefully that's clear enough, Barry.
Okay. So you've kind of, I'm sorry, you all done? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so you've kind of partially answered my question, because we're boiling down now into what type of businesses are you really anticipating to be going in there? And you brought up two things like landscape or storage. Any other thoughts about what's going to happen inside there?
No, I mean, I envision a heavy concentration of those two particular uses. And storage, warehousing, it'd be a contractor shop as well. Doesn't have to be a landscaper, painter, electrician, carpenter, across the gamut. I don't see any restrictions. The property is, smack in the middle of the wellhead. It's where it is RC2 right now. Most uses will need some sort of approval from ZBA. Anything that meets the MCD threshold will be coming back through you again. I don't intend on being the builder of these products of these these properties. I want to give each potential purchaser their own options. So I'd like to leave the flexibility for the curb cuts as we discussed before. So, and
if I may, Mr. Chairman, I like that idea right now, because I think that will be a creative solution depending upon what goes onto the lot, how the lots are configured, whether someone buys two lots even and decides to do something more creative, which would be good. I think you understand why we're asking the question of what's going on there, because we need to kind of envision, how that's going to function, what how the roadway is going to function with it, And how's it also going to impact Old South Road? Are there any thoughts about restrictions on the lots as well too, like restricting tertiaries or anything to that nature?
Not at this point.
Okay.
The one big restriction would be, and it's not out there yet. I mean, it's just fluid conversation right now. Is the Witherspoon look, without a brick sidewalk, but an asphalt, sidewalk, with no on-street parking. I mean, that's the first sign of decay in a neighborhood is vehicles that end up in the street, and you're welcome to impose that restriction on me before I do. So anyway, right off the bat, yes.
Good. No, I think when it comes to parking, we're on the same page here, but depending upon what's all going to go in there, might be a little food for thought about, where the lots max out at in terms of what can go on it. We may need to look at that a little more aggressively at the moment. The last thing I want you to think about is, we've done an extensive amount of work on Old South Road, but we're not quite done yet either. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about being able to, what your thoughts are about what we can do with Old South Road, either in terms of improvements that you could look at directly by the property or contributions into the area as well too. So I just want to get that up on the table as well.
Thank you, Barry. Leslie, your hand is up. Or you're waiting for a response, Barry? Sorry.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I pretty much, it could have had a response. It doesn't necessarily need a response on that.
There was a little delay there, so I let him off the hook at this meeting. And
that's okay.
The point has been made.
But as one board member, I wanted him to know that that'd be something I'd want to look at. But I want to defer to Leslie if she has anything.
Okay, Leslie.
Thanks. I just wanted to expand a little bit on what Barry touched on about restricting uses. I mean, we have done this with other areas where we know that a rezoning will be coming up soon. And it works out better if we can sort of identify the uses that won't be allowed now, so that there's not an incompatibility issue later. There's pretty much everything is allowed in RC2. And if we're going to go in the direction of C-Tech, I think limiting some of those uses that aren't allowed in C-Tech now would lead to a better outcome.
Great.
What do you want to do?
Dave, are you yawning or is your hand up?
I was just wondering if I know there was some talk about it or if it's a thing, and I guess it all depends on what zoning district you move towards, but you don't have a problem restricting subdivision here, do you?
You mean, I'm sorry, you mean in terms of subdividing the particular?
Subdividing the lots after you create the subdivision.
Yeah, I don't have the answer is no. However, on the, I just bring this up because it was part of the preliminary plan I don't know if Meg's back, at the rear of the subdivision is I believe 4,000 square feet of land that does not have a home right now. What would that be? Parcel right there. No, I'm sorry, 2,000, my apologies, 2,000 square feet. That piece of land right there is for the time being is left to potentially service, if necessary, a piece of land to the rear of this, down the road. Is an acre piece of land that immediately adjoins this to the back. So, I mean, if nothing were to ever come to fruition, with that piece of property right there, I would see that parcel 8, or if that piece of land, the land being essentially divided down the middle and being split off to being added to lot 6 and lot 7. Or is that parcel B? I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses.
Parcel B. I mean, that makes.
My apologies, parcel B. So, so Dave, the answer, yes, there'd be no further subdivision with the exception of potentially moving land around it behind the T.
Yeah, we're not creating buildable lots, so.
That's correct. That's correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Leslie or Barry?
Yeah.
Oh. Nat? Go ahead, Leslie, you're first, please.
I had one other question, and maybe this came up already and I missed it, but I don't think it did. Megan, can you pull the plan up again? Or whoever was doing that. There is an existing easement out to Egan Lane, and it would effectively go through lots 4 and 5 in this subdivision there. What would be your reaction to providing an easement across lots 4 and 5, connecting that over to Van Gilder? And perhaps the same with the lower easement as well. Yeah, although I'm not sure that one is.
Do you follow that, Jeff? Do you see the plan there?
Oh, clearly. Yeah, right off the bat, the easement through lot number 2 would have no interest. The easement through 4 and 5, it's been utilized for the 28 plus years since I've owned it. I believe we could figure out how to make sure that that remains intact.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Nat? Unless you had more, Leslie, sorry. Did you? Okay. Nat?
So Leslie's questions are sort of, I think, to do with future zoning change. Leslie, am I correct? And what happens or what can happen?
Really just to leave options open for the future.
Yeah, I mean, that's what this is really all about, is making it fit to what the future of changing these, getting rid of these pork chop strips and Egan Lane becoming a real road, etc. What is the zoning? What do you think the zoning is going to be for this specific subdivision in these individual lots, Leslie? Are you looking at CTEC? Are we looking at CN? Because this is mixed use, from what it sounds like.
I thought we were talking about CTEC here.
That's okay. That's what I sort of thought, but I just forgot that part of the conversation, the previous meeting. So
1,000 square feet, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons with the 10, and I get that, but I'm just curious as far as what you think and what Jeff brought up about that little road to go up to that easement or whatever, that's 22,000 square foot spot. That's the kind of thinking we need as well, because you don't know what's going to happen to that. So allow the road to continue as well. So that's good too. These type of things that we're dealing with, sort of new stuff and old stuff mixed together, trying to fix things. It's really important that everyone sort of follows along with that process. I appreciate staff working on this for years, trying to figure out how to fix this, and at the same time with the applicant. So that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Nat. Barry, since you always let everyone else go, would you mind if I call on Carl first?
Absolutely.
Great. Carl, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, just a point of clarification for the RC2 zone and the CTEC zone, which may happen down the road. Can this property ever have primary, secondary, and tertiary and triple the density, or is that something I'm dreaming?
C-Tech, well, let me rewind. RC2 does not allow tertiary dwellings now. And C-Tech only allows a primary dwelling and an accessory dwelling. And maybe some other types of dwellings, but not primary, secondary, tertiary.
Thank you.
Back to you, Barry.
Thanks, I
Go ahead.
appreciate it. So through you to staff, Leslie, does that easement up by lots 4 and 5 go to anything or connect to anything that we should be thinking about?
I believe if I'm looking at the aerial correctly, it would go across some of the strips of the other lots in the subdivision and connect over to the Egan Lane driveway easement, which with our discussions with the Egan Lane Homeowners Association, that driveway easement would eventually become a roadway.
So that easement could potentially become another access point is what you're saying to me. Is
Yes.
that correct? All right,
Correct.
because good, thank you. That helps tremendously because that's going to bring us back to lot B again. Because correct me if I'm wrong here, I thought I heard that it may also potentially lend itself to becoming part of the Egan property that lies up further from that. Is that correct? Did I hear that?
Has the potential, I believe
Has
Jeff was
potential,
saying,
okay.
to keep that option open. Yeah.
All right,
We don't
so
close that down for accessibility to that 1 acre lot in the back.
right, okay, so that's kind of where I want to track to a little bit. If I think as we're talking about this, if we're going to be if that lot B has that ability to be merged with the 1 acre lot up behind it, I think as a board, we're all about interconnectedness, and what we need to be thinking about is at a minimum pedestrian easement through that or something to kind of happen with it so we do interconnect. But the other easement that lies by lots 4 and 5 to me is much more interesting. And as one member of the board, I'd almost re-encourage the lot lines being redrawn, removing basically lot B, redraw the lot lines and start thinking about that as a possible easement straight into the, the driveway system we're going to put in place as a second means of egress and access into that property. With a lot of it being commercial in there, I don't think that's such a bad idea to be able to shunt some of that traffic around a little bit. So I'm not saying I'm ready to do it yet, but I would certainly like those options available as one member of the board to be able to do is, as our basic mission states, is to be able to be interconnected into other things so that they're not properties unto themselves as well too. And that's where I'd really count upon, staff as well being able to field some of that to figure out how that's going to work, but I just don't want to let that off the table quite yet. Thank you.
So I'll comment a little bit before we open it up to the public. I think Barry raised a really good point early on, potentially the uses that are going to be there and any kind of restrictions that we might look to have imposed. Because it will help us to determine things like lighting and hours of operation, trash storage that we've dealt with in other places, especially with landscape trash storage when the smell of debris is piled up there. So removal on a regular basis, regular trash, your hours of operation, because each lot may have a different business, and one might be light commercial where you'll have saws and things like that, which also would be restrictive on what we did with the light commercial if we only allow the light commercial inside at a certain hours of operation. So the use helps us, instead of just throwing the gamut down on everything, it allows us to kind of focus on what we can look for these individual things that we'd impose. It would be helping each other out. I will say I really kind of like personally think of this as, I've said it all the time, it's very difficult on this island to find commercial lots. And we're not really creating commercial, but in this case, we are creating commercial lots. And when you think about the benefits of that, it's not just leasing it out. You're allowing a potential business owner to expand businesses where they might have a small business in their home office, or, and it restricts them to how many cars or trucks or in business that they can store at their own house in their own driveway. And storage wise, it actually allows them to have a house or a property that they can enjoy from a personal quiet enjoyment, and then take their business somewhere else. So they have storage and equipment and things like that, noise, and where away from their residential areas. So this is kind of a win-win for everyone, but it's really interesting that having ownership of something is much better for someone to think about future expansion and a long-term goal. So as far as the engineering, I appreciate Peter going through everything and not thinking that it's unreasonable from what Mr. Pesci pointed out. And, I trust Ed Pesci. I'm not, advertising that I have anything to do in engineering. So I will refer to the people that do it for a living. So things like the drainage in the fire department and road material, that's something that we could talk about, but I trust Mr. Pesci's engineering report, and I'm sure that if Peter is looking at minor issues, then I think that is a huge asset, and we're heading in the right direction there. So yeah, I think this is why it's good to talk about this for the zoning that we actually potentially could change it to. I'm very happy to see that Mr. Kushul was already addressing the willingness to have the easement continued through 4 and 5. What we do with that, or as Barry was saying, a lot definition change, I'm not ready for that quite yet. It's one thing to put an easement in there, but it's another thing to really hammer out different lot lines and engineering when we don't even know if we'll need that easement in the future. But it's nice to know that it's there and the willingness to have that is there. So I think this is, there's a lot with this presentation. I think it's really a nice positive thing. We're headed in the right direction, but I think there's definitely a lot to consider. And I hope by adding the comments, I hope we reduce some of the questions. And I will look to see if we have any other comments from any of the board members, but I will also like to open it up to the public.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Joe.
To jump back onto your comments with the commercial development, I think there's other parts to it. There's going to be loading trucks going in there where they turn around, trailers, etc. And I think that there's some way where Mr. Kushulik wants to create something that looks like Witherspoon, which is successful. But I think once you put the commercial aspect into it, you don't want a bunch of vans or trucks in the front. So I'm going to use Don Allen Ford building, where on the front it looks like a typical building, or even Botticelli Pole on Old South Road. The front looks like it's a traditional building, but the business is done in the back. And I think that some of that parking restriction should be brought back or off the street as much as possible. And I think if we can get that, then he may get that look that he's trying to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no new hands, I'd like to open it up to the public. Meg, if you could, if there's anybody looking to sign on.
Yep, I just brought over Emily Molden.
Great. Welcome back, Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Emily Molden with the Nantucket Land Council. Just a couple of brief remarks. I just appreciate the boards and staffs looking ahead to what will be happening out here in the future and how the zoning might change, and starting to try and think about that as this plan and project moves forward. And I understand that there's been some great review from Ed Pesci and others, and I presume that as this is continued, that will be in the packet for some public review as well. And I just will look forward as the project proceeds to see some more information on the waiver requests around landscaping and open space use as plans are developed out here. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And anyone else, Meg?
I'm not seeing anyone else.
Okay. Board members, any other questions, comments? Yes, Barry.
Sorry. I guess, I mean, we're pretty much there right now for the moment. Of course, there's a lot more work to be done, but through you to Mr. Kashulik, Jeff, when do you think you'd want to meet next? Do you want like 2 months on this, or August, or? Because I think there's a number of issues that have to not only be hammered out with what we've discussed, but some of that vetted back through staff as well too.
Yes.
Yes, Barry, can you hear me?
Sure.
Outside of the easement issue with 4 and 5, I'm a little unclear as to obviously the engineering, which Mr. Ogren and Mr. Pesky will work out, but I'm a little unclear as to what is the specific issue in addition to the easement on 4 and 5. Lots 4 and 5.
I'm sorry, Jeff, the question, are you looking at what other considerations are we looking at for this?
Yes. I mean, there's been a few things bantered, but it's just like touch. But no, I mean, I'm.
Yeah. So I think what Barry was referring to, just even looking at the list that I was talking about, knowing the uses help, but the discussion is going to be if it is in fact going to be a C-Tech zoning, if we change that, each individual lot, what restrictions we put on for not having business. Maybe we don't want a soap building business there or something like that, to actually restrict the lots and the areas. But by doing so, then we can address certain things like issues that we've had with other landscaping lots where we had to address exterior storage containers, trash disposal, the frequency of trash disposal, things like that. So there's more knowing what you're going to be doing, what zoning we're going to be adding, and then what restrictions and things that we have to consider imposing.
Well, at this point right now, being zoned RC2, and I know RC2 is the lion in the room that the board's been trying to eradicate for years.
Correct.
However, I didn't even realize until somebody I can believe Leslie just mentioned tertiary. The question with tertiaries was asked, and they're not allowed in RC2.
True.
I'm not looking. I don't envision a neighborhood where somebody comes in, drops a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary. That's not what I envision with this piece of property. And the biggest thing that I think we all agree on, the on-street parking will be a flat no-no. Okay, that and knowing that also when in the RC2. Being, I mean, you can't do anything without for all practical purposes, without going to the ZBA. And again, for the second time, if somebody meets the threshold of too big of an operation, which isn't too hard to get to, a 4,000 square foot, building, I believe, which is a threshold for MCD, that's coming back. To you. So I'm just, I mean, I'm not so sure I want to get so deep into the weeds right now with, I mean, and that's my purview. I mean, I'm in front of you asking for permission to, looking for an approval on a concept here. However, I'm I'm thinking that there's a lot more control behind me, okay, than making it too onerous up front. And I don't want to, cut my throat on something, today that I might regret 2 years from now, because there's some new use or, an old use that was figured out to make it more palatable type deal. So, anyways, hopefully I was, clear enough on that right there. So,
No, I think I agree, Jeff, and we're not, I don't know if you expected or any of us expected to make a decision tonight. Yeah, so I think we've got a lot of information, which is great. The more we talked about, the size, what you were looking to do, what we were looking to do, and I think that's going to be beneficial for the next meeting. I think Barry is just being polite, saying, would you be ready for certain things like Emily's request for a landscape plan, and then just some of the things with easements and that we talked about for next meeting, which is only in a month on August 8th. Happy to have you, and maybe get even that much closer, but I don't think anybody expected to have a decision tonight. So all this information, we're going to sleep on this. We're going to look at our notes. We're going to add some more questions and hopefully wind down some things for the next meeting. I think he was just asking what's beneficial for you for next or the following month.
well, I apologize. I was just left a little unclear as to what was, truly important, I guess, from your perspective. So,
and from a standpoint, I think everyone is kind of open to this idea here. I think there's a lot of benefit to the commercial and the ownership and the future. So, I mean, I think you've done a nice job to present it, and we want to help, but we also don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot. We want to make sure that any restrictions that we're requesting are the benefit of you and the development for the future. And also, you were mentioning potentially workforce residential mixed use, and that opens up a conversation with what business is going to be there, knowing you have people living above that because they're employees, they still have a right to quiet enjoyment. So that opens up hours of operation. So there's a lot of things that take off of what you're looking to do. So the more you can wind down and give us a vision of what you expect or don't expect, that will help us with what we're going to look to do with these conditions.
okay, that's a little clearer.
Anyone else? I see, Meg, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we do have one more member of the public who has his hand raised.
Sure. We're not closing, or I'll
Right.
Barry, I would hope that you let the public speak first and then you can comment. Great. Go ahead, Meg.
Mark?
Mark. Hello, Mark. We have the last name. Meg. Mark Chittister. Yeah. Mark, if you're there, you have the floor if you'd like to speak.
Can't hear you, Mark.
Well, let's go to Barry. We can come back to Mark if he. Go ahead, Barry.
Thank you. Mark, you may just want to check your microphone settings, because that usually is where things go a little awry. It's probably what's happening at the moment. It looks like you can hear us, but anyways, no, Jeff, it was really meant to be a very simple question of, just trying to figure out when to slot you in for our next time frame, to appear before the board. There's really nothing more than that, but I wanted to, at least get some sense of where we're going for our next meeting. I mean, you've done great things with other subdivisions that we've seen in the past, and I respect, where you're trying to track to with this one. But, as the board too, there's 11 lots, 22 potential buildings going up, which, could be a combination of both some type of dwelling for the employees as well as, the business itself. So we need to kind of take a little bit more scrutiny, I think, in terms of just kind of what's going to happen a little bit, just so we can dial in a little bit further. But, those are conversations that I'm expecting, primarily through staff, just to kind of hammer out a little bit more of that if need be. But that's all. It was just meant to be a very simple question. I wasn't trying to imply much more than that.
Nothing personal. Nothing personal. You know what?
Oh, no.
Well, while we're on it, I just may as well address it right now, because it may happen between now and the next meeting, which I don't know why I won't be back in a month, Barry. But anyways, I'm not so sure everyone in Egan Lane is going to be as happy as the board is going to be to run through lots 4 and 5. So I just want to introduce that novel concept right there. So FYI.
And that's why we will leave it alone as an easement for potential future, not that it's a definitive plan.
Right. Okay.
Right. But if I may, Mr. Chair, that's why it's important to have these discussions. I'm not saying we're just automatically going to pull the trigger on it, but let's be fair. Let's be fair about, just saying that what may actually happen here. And I understand what the impact would be with the neighbors as well, too. But, as a board, and like I said, with the idea that we have to deal with interconnectedness, let's do what our mission is here. And, we'll need that level of feedback as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Meg, your hand is up. Did you get Mark on yet?
Sorry, I think my hand was still up from before, and Mark dropped off, so I don't know what happened.
Okay. All right.
I can
Anyone else from
restart
the
his
public?
computer.
Any? Well, unless there's anyone else on the board that would like any comment or questions, I would entertain a motion to continue until the August 8th meeting.
So move, sir.
Second.
Motion's been made by Barry, seconded by Dave. Roll call, Barry.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Nat.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you very much. All right, on to public comment. Any comment?
I'm seeing none.
No. Well, public comment, you don't.
Other business, we're looking at discussion on the short-term rental workforce. Oh, go ahead, Meg.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Mark's back, but I'm assuming he's not for general public comment. He's probably for.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know if you can hear me now, maybe.
We did continue to the next meeting. Can we open this up again, Meg?
If you all vote to, you can.
Just a simple question or comment, really.
We just, Mark, I think we need to open it before we can do that.
We do.
Which we want to do. So give us a sec.
Sure.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to open up the Van Glider Ave division. Barry?
Yeah, so moved. I'm actually going to retract my previous request there to continue it.
Okay.
So that we can reopen this and allow Mr. Chichester to give us a little testimony.
Okay. Well, we did close it. So motion's been made to reopen by Barry and Dave seconded. So roll call, Barry. Yeah, Barry.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Nat.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Okay, Mark, thank you for connecting. Sorry, we had a little glitch, or you had a little glitch, but you have the floor. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Chairman, and my apologies. We're having technical difficulties over here. And just a quick question, comment. Sat in on the preliminary here. Actually, let me back up a little bit. I'm commenting on, as a trustee of Center Place Homeowners Association, which is the association that this lot is combined with other 14 or 15 lots. And my question pertains around the stub easement, the northerly stub easement that you guys were talking about. And in the.
Are you referring to the 2,000 square foot at the very end, Mark?
No, the stub easement that comes off of Egan Lane.
Oh, okay.
And right on the
5.
Pardon me? Yeah, yep, exactly, Dave. Lot 4 and 5. It looks like it wants to service that. And in the preliminary hearing, I think Jeff mentioned, this came up and Jeff mentioned that perhaps that lot 4 and 5 would have driveway access to that. And there was no talk of actual access all the way through to Van Gilder. But there was some talk of that tonight. And the association would prefer that wasn't the case. And so I don't know if this is the proper time to mention that, but I thought I'd just bring that up. We prefer that, and I'm not an engineer or anything, but it looks like Jeff's got everything covered here with just the access that he has off of Old South Road, and making that parcel B available for any future, development back into that acre lot that he was talking about. And so that's all I wanted to bring up. And that's the position of the association, is that they have no trouble with lot 4 and 5 accessing it, but we wouldn't want it to go all the way through.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark.
Very good. Well, thank you for hearing me out. And I don't know how you guys do it, but more power to you.
Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye.
Board? Any comments, new comments? Barry, go ahead.
No, I just, through Megan, I don't think there's anyone else out there. Is there, Megan? Nope. So
Nope.
I'd probably like to say, let's do it again, continue the meeting to August 8th there.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Barry to continue, seconded by Nat. Roll call. Barry.
Aye.
Nat.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Okay, went through public comment, other business, the discussion on the short-term rental work group structure recommendation. There was a document that was handed out. I just want to say in the past, I've had to recuse myself from all conversations with short-term rental. I guess there has been a change of heart from the state with our town council. However, I will be allowed to listen, but I think at this time, I don't necessarily want to comment on anything because I have not been given a written response from the state. With that, I know our local town council said they had worked out something where real estate professionals can comment in this work group, but just because I've been in the past, I think Dave has done a great job to lead in this. So I would respectfully hand this over to Dave to talk about it, and I'd be happy to listen.
Thanks, John. We'll miss your wisdom on this. So did everyone get the short-term, the work group framework draft? I think you guys got it in your emails. So the select board is desperate for our comments. So I think what I'd like to do, if it's all right with staff and everyone else and the board, is just to go through this, each point, any input, any questions, any problems, or any added ideas that we can forward on to the select board to get this finalized and moving forward. Does that sound all right with everybody? Good. All right. So let's just skip straight to the proposed framework. This just has to do with who the members of the final work group will be. Depending on which copy of this framework you have, some things have changed. Is everyone comfortable with what it looks like so far, except for the last two are going to be changed? And I think it reflects it in some way. The Board of Health, I guess there is some discussion as to whether there'll be actually a designee or a member. They will not be voting, but will they have a seat and part of the discussion without a vote? Barry?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just so you're aware, what version are you reading off of? There was one that was shared by the select board. There was one that I had worked on based upon our last work group meeting, and then having received the comments from the select board, I actually wound up reincorporating their document back into the mainframe document that we had been using all along.
I think Megan forwarded actually the correct one. I sent her one over the weekend that didn't include the notes from this past select board meeting. I think the one I'm reading off right now has with select board comments from 7/6/22 on the top of it. Oh, actually, so I'm looking at an older one.
Okay, so I have like 3 different versions here. So maybe we can get the right one up in Word document and I can type up as we go, if that would be helpful.
So
this is the one that Barry had sent.
Can you put this in the regular view without all the other stuff?
That was the last one you sent out.
This was the last one you sent out?
Megan sent out. That's the one
okay.
I have both.
I do have, this is the 7-Eleven actually. I'm holding on to. So
there's
it
that one.
could be similar.
Well, I think my Word document is just updating 7-Eleven with the timestamp right now.
Probably is.
So there's no wild differences here, I don't believe. That looks about right, except for, so the framework or the members, the only difference really is that NARAB is out, and that's based on town council. They can be advisory. Yes, Barry.
Yeah, go ahead, finish what you're going to say, but I really kind of want to go back to the document that I had sent you all. I know there's been a significant number of confusion with the different document versions.
Okay. So
floating around. But I'm sorry, but I really went to great length to incorporate all of those different documents into one mainstreamed document. What isn't necessarily helping this conversation either is that the way the document is structured, every time you touch it, it updates the timestamp on it.
Yeah.
Megan, can you roll down one page for me on that document? And I can tell you.
Barry, did you send it directly or did it come from Megan?
I did, and unfortunately, what happened was that, you know, through no incident, the document that was sent to the board by the select board was marked 3.0. The one I had was 2.1, so I got eclipsed out by the select board, although mine reflected all of that. So I'm trying to, you know, I'm not trying to be I probably am being a pain in the butt. This is good. Okay. This is good because it really took a look at what was going on with the select board comments, everything that we had done to date, and really tried to hammer out who and what was happening within the group. So, I really went to great length to make sure that this was going to be as current as possible, and was going to be a true reflection of who was doing what in the process. As we got toward the end of that document, again, I incorporated the things from the select board. If you were to look at the select board and compare it to this, what you'd find is that the select board document they basically took a lot of the same thoughts that I've got in here, but they reformatted the sections of the document to be true to what we were doing as a work group. I still stuck to the original format because that works just as adequately. So instead of, there was a lot of cross-indexing that had to take place, but I thought since it's going to be the approval of the work group that's going to be dealing with this document, I thought this was important to try to give you the most current version of everything that everything we've encountered to date. So sorry to make this a little bit painful, but I was hoping there'd be some explanation that accompanied the only thing that initially you got was the 3.0 document, and mine kind of got lost in the shuffle because it had a lower version number. God forbid that I should have done that. So I'm sorry to interject on that level of confusion, but I will tell you, I think there's some very significant points that this board really does need to consider.
Okay, so let's, if it's all right, let's just talk about this original voting members of this group and what that's going to look like, right? Is that right, Barry? Does that sound?
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. You've done a lot of work. So the basic framework or membership of this group is going to be one planning board member, one FinCom member, one of the non-paying tax voter advisory group, one Act Now member, one Nantucket Together member, one affordable housing advocate, and 3 at-large members. There will be a Board of Health non-voting member, and NARAB will not be there, but they will be asked to present at certain times, I'm sure. Does anyone have comments on the makeup of that? Or thoughts that want to pass along to the planning or to the select board? No, we're all good. So then in Barry, he has the non-voting members as well. I guess you guys can all see that. Plus we're gonna have a staff member from Plus in a supporting role. So I guess we'll roll past that, right? Barry, we good? Yep, okay. So let's roll past that and get into STR work group. Members will be appointed using the Town of Nantucket's committee, board, and commission process. So this has changed a few times. Originally, it was going to be Barry, myself, and 3 select board members. But since that number, I'm not sure why we got away from that, but what we have moved to since is 3, 3, and 3. So it'll be 3 select board members, 3 planning members, and 3 FinCom members. We'll sort the applications and name the members of the group. Yes, Barry.
Yeah, okay, I'm not sure about that because it was all of our discussions, unless something new just came up.
Did you watch last week's select board?
Yeah, no, as far as, and I did look at the document that Libby had sent out. They pretty much stayed true to what we've got in 6A there. Which was to basically keep the people who do the confirmation of this to 3 select board members, the chair of the FinCom and the vice chair of the planning board.
It's my understanding, and listen, that can be our comment to them, that is the preferable. We see that as a preferable method, but there was a long debate at the select board meeting about the 333 makeup. The only one that really showed concern was Matt, and he was concerned that FinCom and Planning Board both supported 42, and that may sway our choices on who we pick, which I have an issue with that, but so that's why it was a long discussion. And I guess we as a board, we can give them our comments and what we think is right. So I guess my question is, what do we as a board think is the best makeup of the appointing group?
Dave, I like your recommendation at 333.
Okay.
I think that gives you the most balance.
I mean, I think that is the goal here, and that is the biggest fear, that if we do not choose a balanced work group, that none of this work we do will matter. We need to have buy-in from the public. And so it's important that we figure that balance into our appointment process. Anybody else? I'm not sure how we do this when for you, Megan, when you give our recommendations. I mean, should we vote on this? Should we say? I mean, I guess we kind of have to vote on it, don't we? To give the planning
I think you
board
should.
our decision, Barry.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think that's what Denise, who's been really kind of chairing this whole process through, was looking for, was for us as a board to review the document, see what changes we thought were very necessary, and then vote on it officially as a board, that will be the document. And then the real task is just to bring bring that together from the various groups. But I will tell you in full disclosure that I did show this to Denise in advance, and she had requested to me to be able to bring this, what you're looking at right now, go forward back to this board. Just for additional comment and stuff. I will tell you in 6A, I did stay true to what the original crafted document was. And I'm just kind of wanting to go, if you'll give me a second, to go back to what Libby had sent out as the representative document from their board, just to do a side-by-side comparison to it. Because I think she used the same language. I think whatever Matt may have brought up didn't make it into that version, that 3.0 version she sent. So just through you, if I can have a minute.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I know.
I know we need to get this right, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, it's the end of a long meeting, but I think we really, this is important, and it needs to get to the select board for their next meeting. So if it takes us a little extra time to get it right, then that's unfortunately what we're going to have to do.
Let's see. Chair will be appointed. So I'm sorry, I'm looking at her document here. Basically what came from the select board, from what I understand from her, was consistent with the language that's in that current document. Hers is number 3, subsection A. It says all members will be confirmed by a majority vote of 3 select board members. 2 are recused, the chair of the finance and the vice chair of the planning board.
Okay. I mean, if that's what they sent to us, then that's what we will roll with. That sounds good to me. So, I guess the question is, and I'm not saying 333 is the answer, but what is going to produce the best results? And when I say that, what I mean is what is going to give us a way to best structure these choices in a way that that all voices are heard and there's as little room for doubt, I guess. Does that make sense to you guys? And if this is the way, then I'm fine with it. I think that 3 select board members, though I guess the problem is this was all based on when select board members could not speak on this.
Yeah.
And now they're speaking willingly. So I think, listen, we can say that we voted yes on the 3-2, yet that we're open to other suggestions. I mean, since they didn't give us the 3-3-3 in the document, which I find very odd, then this is what we have to work with. Everyone good with that? I'd entertain a motion on this particular item, or should we just wait and do the whole thing at once? Okay. All right, so let's move on. So work is being done on identifying a facilitator. They will be non-voting. In all extensive purposes, they will be the chair of the board, and they will be a facilitator. Is everyone good with that? I'll take that as a yes. All right, so just moving on down to the work group members. Commitment will include, you guys have the documents, you've read it. I won't go through every single one. The one meaningful change would be C, which instead of 80% consensus, we've changed it to 7 out of 9 votes. Other than that, it is as it's printed. On to 6. 9 different. There was something batted around again on the last meeting, and I'm not sure it's made into this document about identifying members. So there was a lot of talk in the select board meeting about having the individual constituencies or groups act now, Nantucket Together, non-voting taxpayer, to put forward 3 candidates. And the reason the select board thought that was wise was that it would give the appointing group a little more flexibility in trying to keep the playing field level, if that makes sense to you guys. And I think that's a good idea. I mean, the aim of this group is not to wait with any one thought pattern, right? We don't want Act Now to be overloaded. We don't want Together to be overloaded. We need to have an even playing field in this group. So I think that 3 is better because it gives us the ability to level the playing field as it comes to positions in the group. Does that make sense, Barry?
I'm sorry, I'm not really following you at this point.
We're talking
you
about,
lost me at 3.
Okay, so we're talking about, and I might have skipped forward on, I don't think I did. I'm talking about when, let me just make sure. There's just
And Megan, just so you know, this is the select board only comment document that we're looking at.
Yeah, so
We switched documents.
So originally each group was going to put forward 2 candidates, or put forward 2 candidates. One would be an alternate and one would be seating. Okay. There was a long discussion at the select board meeting about actually having them put forward 3 for us to pick 2 from, or not us, whoever the appointing group is. And that gives that group the ability to shuffle the deck, so to speak, to keep the membership of the group at neutral buoyancy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm through you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed that meeting. My computer conked out at that stage. again, I didn't see that in the document that Libby provided where it went up to 3. She pretty much followed the same tone of what we did.
It's crazy. I don't know who updated this, but it doesn't have half the stuff that they talked about, but that's
Well,
fine.
okay, but I'm going to respectfully say it really does, because the document that was shared out from Denise through Libby was the one I kept using as a reference point to incorporate back in.
Well, I encourage everyone to go back and watch that meeting, even though we will already make our comment. So,
Yeah, but
I mean, how does the board feel about having our suggestion be 3, which 2 are picked from? What are the negatives?
Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
You're going to take me out to the horse barn and just beat me afterwards. That might be the best thing to do. I'm sorry.
You guys might all just do away with me after this. So,
yeah.
No, Barry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I can respect where we were at, but when we start thinking about, okay, so we need an alternate to the alternate now.
No,
or
only
we
2
need to
will
have
sit-
3 possible choices
3.
when you make, what happens if you get 5 choices?
3 possible
I
choices
don't,
is the only option.
I think what makes sense to me is that you're going to get a number, there'll be a number of submissions that will come in, all right?
Yeah.
But these groups need to decide who they want to, who they really want to put forward at this point.
But
And we can certainly look through all the applications, but in the end, the only thing that you're going to be doing is selecting 2 people. The primary who's going to sit through the entire thing through the grace of God. And if the primary crashes, burns, whatever may happen, but they have to leave, they are technically now gone. And it really is just the alternate who's going to be going in. It eliminates also that potential of, oh, the primary will be here this week, the alternate will be the next meeting, and then the alternate may do the next one. And no. If you're
3
going
are not, 3 will not be picked, Barry. Only 2 will be picked. It will,
okay.
It will give the appointing or choosing group flexibility to pick 2 of the 3 in the hopes that that gives them the opportunity to help level the playing field when it comes to having the final work group be weighted with one thought process over another. Have I explained that?
Okay.
Better?
Yeah, that you have now.
And that, I think that makes sense. I think we need to give the appointing group every opportunity to create a work group that is evenly distributed in their desires.
Okay.
So if it's all right with you guys, I would like to have that added in, that those people, those 3 groups, Act Now, not voting taxpayers, and together, I think, right? Those are the 3 groups. All should put 3 names forward, because the at large, there's going to be an explosion of applicants there. Okay. Does that make, Meg, you got that?
Yep, I got it.
Okay. Everyone is all right with the work group commitments? All right. So I'm on to number 6, I guess. But can you back up just a little bit? Oh, see, your numbers are different. Members of work group goes to, okay. All right, so 8. Everyone is all right with 8. Okay, we can move down if we can, please. All meetings will be public. I'm sure everyone's good with that. Objectives of the work group. is there anything we need to add in here? I mean, I think this is a pretty important part here is to, I think that I think it makes sense what they have now. Everyone good with that? Joe, you good?
Yep.
Nat?
Yep.
John? Oh, that's right. You're not saying anything.
I'm listening.
Okay. All right, down to 11. Well, that's what we're on, I guess. Okay. That's good. So I guess I mean, as far as the board's concerned, what do we want? What's the outcome we're looking for? I mean, I think, you know, there's been a lot of talk about zoning changes. And that's what they're going to produce here is zoning changes to deal with instead of 42, they're looking, I think, for more specific zoning changes. Does anyone have feelings on that?
Yes. That's why we crafted 42.
Agreed.
Because that's going to be the biggest discussion to get cleaned up, Dave, is the STRs are everywhere. So changing zoning to create some sort of limit in every zoning, just you have different zoning all over the island. That would be, we'll be all probably 90 years old by the time that gets solved. That's the approach needs to be that finding ways to, and we've discussed this way to limit numbers in certain areas or, you know, that type of thing. That's where it needs to focus. Unfortunately, 42 got called the floodgate article, when it really, the floodgate's already here.
No, I agree.
And then, you know, we get into the lawsuit issue and trying to make what people have been doing, like, you know, quote unquote legal, in at least allowed under zoning, like a use of residential property.
Yep.
That to me is the biggest sort of narrative that has to be sort of cleaned up to restart the conversation about corporate versus LLCs versus the average Joe that does this, that lives here or owns a home on the island seasonally. So, I mean, and then the homeowners association issue that I believe John Giorgio answered at one of our hearings that we were on, or meetings that we were on with the select board. You and I were, I think, or it was our meeting. I can't remember which one, but we talked about creating neighborhoods can create
Homeowners associations that ban STRs.
Yes, or limit them or come up with numbers for their own neighborhood and come up with an outline of where that is, which I think is a huge tool for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think that I think I like the way it is because I feel that if we get more granular in our desire for an outcome here or to give them objectives, I think that what's going to happen is this is going to be a learning process for everyone in this work group. And in the end, as they get educated and really see the facts as they exist, that they're going to come around to understand what we all understand now. That this needs to be managed through town bylaws.
Yeah.
And not through zoning.
Correct.
And I don't think we should force that hand in the objectives. We should let the work group come to that realization.
Can I ask one more question, Dave? How, and you may have already said this, you or Barry, and I might have missed it. How are the public, I don't know if we call them at large or general public, how are those people getting picked, and how many are there going to be again?
There'll be
It's got to be an even number.
3 at-large members, and they will be picked by the committee method that the town has. So people will put in applications. The selecting group will review the applications and choose the members. Is that your understanding, Barry?
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, it essentially, the at-large, which will be 3 individuals, there'll be there'll be a primary and an alternate, but you may have multiple applications in the process, under which, the decision will have to be made. That one has the least control of, how many applicants you're going to get for it. But in the end, that small subgroup of this entire work group, the 5 individuals we talked about, are going to be responsible for pulling that into place. Does that answer the question? Yeah.
Can I just follow up, Dave and Barry?
Please.
I'm curious, I'm concerned about having 3, not having an even number.
Well, there are 3 at-large
That
members of a 9-person group.
Right.
Okay. I'm just looking at, someone might say, how is it going to balance out potentially? But I think that might already be covered with the number that's besides the 3.
That's the hope of the other groups offering 3 people forward. That's going to give that group the ability to try to balance viewpoints in the final. Barry.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, Nat, it's any decisions that are made by the board is not simple majority. Okay, so there won't be 4 to 5. They've got to reach a higher consensus value at every time. So I believe, not having it right here and not wanting to tie you guys up, but I believe they had to have 7 out of 9 agree to that. And if there's certain things that are data driven or data elements, they're going to have 100% agreement. So the chair is going to have a bit of a job, but it's going to force that group to have to actually work together to come to some type of reasonable consensus. So I'm pretty confident, and I hope David is as well too, that by using larger numbers of quantum of vote, that is going to resolve your typical majority. Because as well as I do, sometimes it's not hard to find 5 people who are like, nah, forget it, not going to do it. This is going to be tougher. And I think given the sensitivity of what we've seen, what's going on with the community, that's the obligation we owe them. And that's why those threshold numbers are set higher. Does that help a little bit?
Yep, got it. It's like a supermajority type thing.
Exactly.
And I think the group of 6 is going to develop a questionnaire that's going to go along with the application. So we will have a pretty good grasp on who these people are and what their viewpoints are and how well they'll work together with the board to find a consensus. So is there anything else that is there something that anyone thinks that we're missing in this framework, or, that maybe could help us moving forward?
The only other thing would be Article 39's a sort of a cliff note, sort of simple explanation of what that article does, what it can do, what it provides, you know what I mean? Like, I don't mean to say it like so simple, but I think you understand where I'm going, that there's been, again, a lot of different things have been said that need to be cleaned up, and similar to 42, but more importantly with 39, because of the benefits that it provides, that is kind of hard to explain. Like some of the people that, live here year round, that have been doing this a long time, are a little bit upset about having a potential layer of regulation that they don't have now, versus someone else might not realize that it can provide some regulation that they want. So I think that it's important, and I think that's been pretty well explained at different times at select board meetings. But having a real explanation of what Article 39 can do for both sides. You know what I mean? That's why it got so much support, I think.
Town council will, I am sure, be a frequent visitor to this work.
Yes. Oh, exactly. No,
And
no,
so I think it's a baseline that needs to be established early on, so the members of the group understand how. I mean, more importantly, even I think, is the Enabling Acts of 2019, so that the work group knows
right
that the state has legislated ways to restrict and regulate these, and that will go into their reasoning in the end when they return their recommendations to the select board.
Yep, good.
Barry?
Yeah, and Nat, just so you know too, it's too easy to stray into Article 39. So if you look in this document, we do certainly encourage them to look at any guidelines that would support it, but it is not the working domain of this group. Article 39 is for the Board of Health to be able to get appropriate data and be able to do the administrative work that has to follow along with this. So we try to be very clear, and Dave, you can certainly chime in here, that we don't want them focusing on Article 39. Article 39 will actually hopefully provide tools to be able to tell them what's going on in certain districts as the data now begins to get gathered. Where I see this going is that there will be an article that tends to be crafted that will look at certain zoning districts as to where this tends to make sense, where it doesn't tend to make sense, but with using concrete data. So you may want to think, for instance, like, are we really concerned about the LUG zones, for instance, where you're starting at 40,000 square feet and working your way up from there? Does STRs out there, are we worried about that? Whereas something, where you're getting into more dense areas, such as R5, R10, again, maybe there does need to be some type of moratorium that's put in place based upon the data that we achieve to be able to say, okay, those neighborhoods are kind of solid. It may be also a matter of looking at and saying, maybe these don't fit well within a historic district. So maybe there's a moratorium that gets imposed there. And especially with commercial, that's almost an automatic. That would be like, nope, sorry, STRs are not going to be in commercial areas. So
unless it's the commercial downtown district.
Again, but these are the things that work group is. Yeah, you're right. Funny.
And if I may, Barry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No,
I think
please.
What's going to happen in my viewpoint is the purpose of this work group is to take 43 and 42 and go like that, right? And drain out what the best way to regulate is. And again, I don't have a crystal ball, but what I think when everyone sees the data and begins to understand, they're going to be like, oh my God, we need to use 39 to regulate.
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to end up regulating in through zoning. So again, it's going to be an educational adventure for whoever ends up on this work group. And I think what they're going to learn is what we as this board understand. And we'll come out with some sort of zoning that's going to rely on 39 to enforce it. So I think that's going to be the adventure of this work group. Is the most important things is to pick an evenly balanced work group to make sure they get the best factual data possible, and then they understand how, and then they figure out what they need to do to protect certain neighborhoods from too many STRs and how to do it. And in the end, I think they're going to end up at 39 on how to do it, because that's really the only way to do it. You can't really do it through zoning. And again, that's going to come from them learning it. So we just need to give them the opportunity to do that. So should we just take a vote on this, on the few small suggestions we had here, and call it a night?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd probably just suggest that we, with everything we've talked about, we accept the document with the associated, with any of the associated changes that we've talked about.
Yep.
To be able to bring it back into the work group.
Okay. I'm good with that. Is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Hold on a sec here.
And I will recuse, Dave.
Okay. All right, Barry.
Aye.
Nat?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
And Vice Chair's aye, so unanimously. Turn it back over to you, John. Sorry if I confused.
Thank you, Dave.
both of you.
No, I know, I just want to state that a lot of the public does not see all the work that goes into this group, and I appreciate it, especially since I had to step away from it. But there's a lot of work, discussions. So thank you for the extra time you all put into it. I think we're at that point for adjournment. Joe, Abby, I hope this was everything you thought it was going to be, and you enjoyed your first meeting, so welcome. There will be many more. So unless anyone has anything else to add, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Dave, seconded by Nat. Roll call. Dave?
Aye.
Nat?
Aye.
Barry?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you all. Thank you, staff. Thank you for everyone that held on. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Welcome,
guys.
Abby.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome. Okay.